Chapter 4277. Luin listened quietly and closed his eyes. An image of the abyss devouring life after life appeared in his mind. The people whose knees had been shattered were crawling towards the people on the other side of the abyss. He had to collect the corpse of that person. Even if the entire civilization was buried, he had to fill that abyss. Too many people had died at the bottom of the abyss. It was a line of death. Luin clenched his fists. Had humans ever encountered such a thing? After they died, something even more terrifying happened. The creature looked at Luin again and spoke in a trembling voice, "Bones." Bones crawled out from their corpses. They crawled out of the abyss and beyond the line of death towards the person who had died in battle. They danced around that person, and even though their knees were shattered, they still danced and sang for death, mocking them. They crawled even faster. They filled the line of death without hesitation and crawled over. They pushed the bones away, mocking death. Mocking the person who had died in battle. Mocking the human civilization. But the more they crawled, the more bones there were, despair. They brought an entire civilization. So what if the entire civilization was filled in? Death looked down from above, its gaze forever filled with mockery and amusement. To death, this was just a game, a form of entertainment. Don't touch death, don't touch death. No, no more. Luin calmly stood in place and slowly opened his eyes. Who had encountered such a thing? One of the 9 bases. Death. It was the universe of death. Controlling the bones and making them leave the body was the universe of death. Had such a thing happened in the ancient past? Making the bones dance, drawing the line of death, and the universe of death. You guys really know how to play. These 3 recorded civilizations were released, and they were still in the vicinity. As for what would happen in the end, it had nothing to do with Luin. They had brought him information, and he had given them freedom. This was an exchange. Everything else had nothing to do with Luin. He had no need to save any civilization other than the human civilization. You know that the human civilization has encountered this before. Luin looked at Cement. Cement replied, every civilization has encountered a tragedy. It's normal. The records of the human civilization are not remarkable. How did you know? I'm used to flipping through the history of a civilization after recording it. Perhaps I can find a connection with some of the current civilizations. Luin's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. Indeed, this was a good idea. Through that civilization, Luin already knew what the undead universe had done to the human civilization. Otherwise, if he encountered the undead universe in the future, he might still foolishly cooperate with them. That's right, no wonder the Azure Lotus Lord could draw away the Death Universe. This was because Qing Lianyu was a human powerhouse who had cultivated to a high level. He was a powerful enemy to the Death Universe. That was why he was lured away. It also explained why so many skeletons in the Death Universe were in the form of humans. These skeletons might have come from the War of the 9 Bases. Following that, Luin had Cement bring out the creature that knew the coordinates of the Red Coat civilization. He wanted to search for them. This was a creature that had reached the level of Dooku Air, and it was also terrified of Luin. Luin's aura was as oppressive as the sky. Are you sure it's in this direction? Luin asked. This creature had provided him with a rough location, and it wasn't too far away. The creature replied, this is what was recorded in the clan, it should be in this direction. Otherwise, how could a being that had undergone bitter adversity know where the underworld red specters were? Luin faced that direction and used the mirror light technique. 20 years was enough for him to reach the eternal realm. Following the mirroring technique, Luin slowly shifted his gaze and soon saw a part of the universe. It was there that he had teleported away with the Cement and the creature. When he reappeared, he was already far away from that part of the universe, where even Eternals could see him with their naked eyes. The moment they appeared, a vast aura rushed over from the universe in front of them. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. The Eternal Realm. Red coat ahead. Retreat. These 5 simple words carried a supreme domineering aura, as if the word, red coat, was a deterrent. Lu Yin instantly disappeared with cement and the creature, leaving far away. In the civilization ahead, a man in red opened his eyes and looked. Gone. That fast. How long had it been since the last eternal being? He just didn't know what civilization this eternal being belonged to. What he sensed was not Lu Yin's aura, but cement's aura. He did not see Lu Yin. However, Lu Yin had seen him. After leaving the underworld red coat civilization, the first thing Lu Yin did was attack cement. The triple Tsang sword intent, hidden sword slashed through nearly half of cement's body. Cement could not dodge and was heavily injured. More than half of its body was torn apart. It shouted angrily, "Human, why are you still attacking me?" Lu Yin's gaze was cold. Previously, he did not attack because he wanted to find the underworld red coat civilization. Now that he had found it, he did not have to kill cement, but he definitely had to trap it. Its methods were torture to the civilization, so it was impossible to let it go. Moreover, he had to bring it back to look at the karma. He just did not have the time to look at it now. The triple Tsang sword intent was still not enough. Lu Yin personally took action and continuously injured cement. In the end, cement was almost the same as Kuei. Only then did Lu Yin throw it into the general appointment platform hell to increase the karma first. He did not release the karma heavenly Tao. Lu Yin knew that the karma heavenly Tao's current range was equivalent to the range before he planted the Tao sword on the immortal Lord. It was quite large. A few more eternal beings would be enough to rival the karma heavenly Tao. That was what Lu Yin was looking forward to. A few months later, Lu Yin locked cement in Mount Supreme. Then, he looked at the underworld red coat civilization. He did not go directly. Instead, he returned to the human civilization to discuss with Green Lotus Emperor and the others. In particular, Green Lotus Emperor had previously given up on the underworld red coat civilization. It was obviously not right. If Green Lotus Emperor had given up on it, it meant that the underworld red coat civilization was very weak. However, the underworld red coat civilization he had just seen was definitely not weak. There was more than one eternal being. Then, what was the underworld red coat civilization that Green Lotus Emperor had given up on? It was just a few teleportations, which was not as long as increasing the karma heavenly Tao. Lu Yin quickly returned to the Nine Heavens universe and learned that Green Lotus Emperor was in seclusion. Senior Green Lotus is in seclusion. Lu Yin was surprised. In front of him, Mingjue said, "That's right. Master said that Mr. Lu's use of karma gave him inspiration." He immediately went into seclusion. "Unless there's an emergency, don't disturb him. He also asked me to pass a message to Mr. Lu." After a pause, Mingjue looked at Lu Yin. "Mr. Lu, you can make all the decisions regarding the human civilization." Lu Yin nodded, "I understand." Since Green Lotus Emperor was in seclusion, Lu Yin could only greet Mr. Mu and the others and tell them that he had found the underworld red coat civilization. Then, he went to the underworld red coat civilization alone to understand more. Of course, he also looked for Hong Er before leaving. "Is your civilization really the underworld red coat civilization?" Hong Er was still in the mangrove forest. When she saw Lu Yin, her expression was calm. "Yes." "What's their strength?" Hong Er said, "A strength that can be abandoned. A strength that is useless to the Nine Heavens universe." "Is there any eternal being?" "Of course not." "How can you be sure that your civilization is the underworld red coat civilization?" Lu Yin asked. Hong Har was stunned by the question and looked at Luin blankly. What did he mean? She did not know what her own civilization was. After a moment of silence, she asked, "What do you want to say, Mr. Liu?" Luin did not ask and directly used karma to investigate. After all, Green Lotus Emperor had said that he could ask whatever he wanted. He wanted to see Hong Er's past karma. Scenes of karma appeared, and Luin saw Hong Er's civilization and her experiences. In the blink of an eye, Luin entered the universe and appeared in a bustling city. He easily looked into the universe with the mirroring technique and saw the rotation of planets, the rise and fall of continents, and many cultivators. Chapter 4278. The city was bustling, and Lu Yin's appearance was not out of the ordinary since not everyone wore red. This civilization was similar to the one that Hong had been born in. Many cultivators wore red clothes and umbrellas, but there were not that many of them. Most of the regions in this universe were shrouded in red mist. Lu Yin used his mirroring technique to see that these regions were densely packed and covered the entire universe. With his current strength, he did not need to slowly understand them. With a sweep of his consciousness, he was able to understand many things. The regions shrouded in red mist were called emotionless valleys, and the entire universe was filled with underworld redcoats. At the very least, that was the case in this universe. Wherever the redcoats passed, not even a blade of grass would grow. This was what the cultivators of this universal civilization knew about themselves. However, underworld redcoats did not refer to the entire civilization. Only those who were recognized by the civilization and qualified to wear the red umbrellas were qualified to be called underworld redcoats. Underworld redcoats were not a realm or group, but a symbol for the powerhouses of the civilization. Many cultivators did not wear red clothes because they did not want to, but because they did not have the qualifications. Only those who joined the Heartless sect were qualified to wear red clothes, and only those who were recognized by the Heartless sect were qualified to wear the red umbrellas and become underworld redcoats. The Heartless sect was the strongest and only sect in this universe. It spread the Heartless path throughout the universe, and the Heartless valleys were used as a test. Only one person from each Heartless valley could survive and join the Heartless sect. The Heartless valleys were spread throughout the entire universe, and they could continuously send talents to the Heartless sect. These people had all walked out of a sea of slaughter. When Lu Yin found out about this, he did not know how to describe it. There was no lack of similar cultivation paths in human civilization, but they were usually unorthodox and used slaughter as a stepping stone. They could never be passed down to the entire civilization, and Lu Yin had never considered this point. However, this point had been passed down in this human civilization and was accepted by everyone. The Heartless path had become the strongest and only cultivation path of the mind in this civilization. This cultivation path could not be considered wrong, as it went against normal human emotions. However, heartlessness was also a type of emotion. But could a person really be completely heartless? Lu Yin believed that it was impossible, unless it was the Eternals. He had been cultivating his mind all this time, and he had seen too much. No one was truly heartless. No one. Then how could the heartless Tao reach the pinnacle in this universe? He could not accept this method of cultivation, but he was not qualified to say that it was wrong. This was because this civilization had indeed given birth to powerhouses through the Heartless path, and the number of eternal life realm experts even exceeded that of the humans in his civilization. He was like a spectator, walking through the Heartless valleys one after another, watching people fall one after another. Their eyes never changed from the beginning to the end. They were so cold, disregarding the lives of others, and even more so, disregarding their own lives. In this civilization, indifference and ruthlessness were engraved in their bones. In the face of such a civilization, it seemed reasonable and even reasonable to abandon some people as bait for their own survival. Lu Yin gradually understood the feelings of those who had been abandoned. What they resented was not the fact that they had been abandoned, nor was it for the continuation of human civilization. Instead, they resented the indifference in the bones of those who had abandoned them. They resented the continuation of their civilization at the cost of death, but they did not even have a tombstone or a word of thanks. Lu Yin hesitated. What would come of being recognized by such a civilization? They were both human civilizations, but the red coats under the astral stars seemed to be another civilization, one that was completely different from human emotions. Lu Yin could not accept the cultivation path that they had taken. Currently, the human civilization on his side was harmonious. Of course, there were killings and fights among the cultivators, and there were also despicable and evil. These were unavoidable, but the darkness in the corners could not hide the overall light. The threat of civilization war caused all of their conflicts to be directed toward the stars. Even eternal life realm experts frequently appeared to give guidance. This kind of atmosphere could easily be disturbed if one came into contact with the red coats under the astral stars. This was an entire civilization, not just one or two people. Lu Yin sat on the mountain in silence. A distant mountain peak was faintly discernible, as if it was in the clouds or above the 9 heavens. That was the Heartless sect. Everyone who survived from the Heartless Valley would be accepted into the Heartless sect, where they would be considered to have taken the first step in cultivation. 100 days later, the sound of bamboo filled the sky. This bamboo sound was clear and cold, like the morning of winter. This was the sound of bamboo hitting the ribs of the red umbrella. It was also the sound of the Heartless sect accepting disciples. The red fog in the Heartless Valley opened up, revealing the last survivors. Some were standing, some were sitting, and some were lying down. Some were crippled and only had half their bodies left. Some only had consciousness in their heads, but they were not far from death. Beams of light from the Heartless sect shone in every corner of the universe, accurately picking up the last survivors from the Heartless Valley. Regardless of whether they were crippled or not, even if they only had a trace of life left, it was a success if they could survive until the Heartless sect accepted disciples. The Heartless sect would heal them. A woman stood outside the main hall of the Heartless sect. The entire Heartless sect's red umbrella was open, covering the stars and illuminating the world in red. You are all very good. The Heartless path has long disregarded life and death. The woman continued to speak as if she was educating everyone. She was an eternal realm cultivator, so her voice could be heard by everyone. Lu Yin looked at the cities and the people whose relatives had entered the Heartless Valley. Their expressions did not change. If their relatives had survived, they would have known by now. However, most of them had died in the Heartless Valley, and their expressions did not change. They lived a numb life and listened to the woman speak. Lu Yin looked at the woman again, and his eyes moved. Outside the hall, the woman paused and looked in Lu Yin's direction. Their eyes met, and there was surprise and confusion in her eyes. Lu Yin looked at her calmly. His expression was the same as those who cultivated the Heartless path, but his indifference could never compare to those people. Those people were indifferent to their bones. The woman looked away, said a few more words, and disappeared. Not long after, she appeared in front of Lu Yin and examined him. Who are you? Where are you from? Lu Yin looked at her. Human civilization, Lu Yin. The woman frowned. Human civilization. Other than the understar redcoats, there is also a human civilization in the area of Square. How did you get in? Lu Yin stood up and faced the woman. I have my ways. You are Bayu. With a sweep of his consciousness, he learned many things. This woman's name was Bayu, and she was the leader of the Heartless sect. She was an eternal realm cultivator. However, Lu Yin felt that she was far weaker than Jingmen Shangyu. At most, she was on par with Master Qudeng. Bayu stared at Lu Yin. How dare you call an eternal realm cultivator by his name? Follow me. With that, she turned and walked toward the heartless sect. She was very confident and was not worried that Lu Yin would run away. Lu Yin did not plan to run away. He followed Ba Yu into the heartless sect. No one saw them along the way. Although Lu Yin was not an eternal realm cultivator, his aura made Ba Yu wary. Ba Yu knew that this person might have reached the limit of combat power below the eternal realm. There were not many cultivators with such combat power in the entire Understar Redcoat civilization, and ordinary cultivators could not see them. If she had not sensed Lu Yin's strength, she would have attacked when Lu Yin called out Ba Yu's name. He followed Ba Yu into the heartless sect. In the main hall, everything was red as far as the eye could see. There was a red umbrella behind every chair. Only then did Lu Yin notice that the blades were inserted into the ribs of the umbrellas. The handles of the umbrellas were actually sword hilts. Red shirt, red umbrella, and red sword. This is the legendary red shirt beneath the stars. It's no wonder why everyone says that wherever a red shirt passes by, not even a blade of grass will grow. You guys cultivate the path of heartlessness, so you don't care about anything, Lu Yin said as he casually sat down on a chair. Chapter 4279. Ba Yu suddenly turned around. You're too presumptuous. As she spoke, she raised her hand and pressed down. Her red clothes fluttered without any wind, and life energy and immortal matter gathered in her palm. Under normal circumstances, even those below immortal life would be in a difficult situation facing this palm. It was enough for Ba Yu to show her might. However, Lu Yin did not move at all and allowed the palm to land. Ba Yu's palm stopped less than half an inch from Lu Yin's forehead. She stared at Lu Yin. Aren't you afraid of death? Lu Yin looked up. Why don't you hit me? Ba Yu sneered. Because you're from the human civilization, you know that I want to find the human civilization through you. Therefore, you think that I won't kill you. You're quite brave. Lu Yin smiled. It seemed that he could understand it this way. Ba Yu retracted her hand and sat in the main seat. Tell me your origin, location, and purpose. I can give you the treatment you deserve. As a human, you can enjoy what you enjoy in your civilization here. If he had met someone who could make such a decision before coming into contact with the Redcoat civilization, Lu Yin would have been tempted. Unfortunately, after seeing this ruthless path, he had no interest in this civilization. It was only because they were both from the human civilization they could help each other. However, they could not let the two human civilizations come into contact. The ruthless path did not care about anything, but they were different. They were easily disturbed by the ruthless path. More importantly, tell me how you came in. Ba Yu's gaze was deep. She stared at Lu Yin. This was very important. The four directions of the civilization were guarded by four eternal life realms. Even an immortal could not enter quietly, let alone someone below immortal life. However, Lu Yin had entered. Perhaps there was a loophole in the civilization's defense. This was a big deal. Lu Yin shrugged. Would you believe me if I said that I came in openly? Ba Yu frowned. You're Lu Yin, right? Yes. Don't force me to attack you. Since you can come here, it means that your civilization is not far from here. If you want to find it, you can still find it. Don't use your own life to joke with me. You can't afford it, Ba Yu said coldly. Lu Yin nodded. You're right. There's no point in telling you. I'll let you make the decision. Presumptuous. Ba Yu attacked again, and this time, she was truly enraged. She did not hold back at all as she viciously swatted down with her palm. However, before her palm could land, the red umbrella on the chair behind Lu Yin automatically opened up. He blocked Ba Yu's palm. Ba Yu looked to the other side. An old man had appeared out of nowhere. He wasn't wearing red clothes. Instead, he wore a long robe and looked like a teacher. He held a wine gourd in his hand and smiled as he looked over. Luin looked at the old man as well, and his gaze swept past Ba Yu. Sect Master. Ba Yu did not understand. This person is too impudent. The old man shook his head with a smile and waved his hand. I know. All right, there's no need to scare him. This kid isn't scared at all. Ba Yu looked at Luin and saw that his eyes were calm and even had a faint smile on them. She couldn't understand how a brat who hadn't even reached the eternal realm dared to be so impudent. Could it be that this kid was a scoundrel? You're too close to me. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. Ba Yu glared, wanting to attack again. Luin looked at the elder. Are you the leader of the Heartless clan? The old man smiled and nodded. This old man will ask. Luin glanced at the wine gourd. Those who drink are all sentimental people. Jiu Wen smiled. There are also sentimental people, but you haven't seen them. After speaking, he looked at Ba Yu. Sit down, girl. Don't be so impulsive. Luin looked at Ba Yu. You don't cultivate the heartless path. He had purposely provoked Ba Yu just now, and she had been easily angered. This was not how someone who cultivated the heartless path should behave. Ba Yu narrowed her eyes. You'd better tell me the truth. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the pain of the heartless path, even if you're a scoundrel. Oh. You guessed it. That's right. I'm a scoundrel. Luin smiled. Ba Yu did not say anything. A scoundrel was qualified to speak to her as an equal. Jiu Wen looked at Luin with interest. All right, kid. What's your name? Luin looked at Jiu Wen. Luin. Good name. The word "yin" describes the lives of countless cultivators. Many people only want to hide themselves in the end, just like civilizations, Jiu Wen said emotionally. Luin said, Senior's name is good. Jiu Wen, Wen Jiu. Everything is in the wine. Jiu Wen laughed. Is that so? My master gave me this name. I didn't want to be called this back then. I named myself Jiu Tian, but my master didn't agree. Luin was speechless. Ba Yu frowned. Sect Master, this kid comes from another human civilization. Jiu Wen grunted. I know. I can tell. Those who don't cultivate the heartless path are like rare animals in our civilization. You were lucky to reach immortality, but this kid is different. He looked at Luin and asked, Luin, do you mind telling us about the situation of your human civilization? Luin said directly, I mind. Ba Yu's gaze was cold. Jiu Wen was puzzled. Why? We're all from the same civilization, so we should support each other. Human civilization is one family. Luin said, do the red coats under the stars really treat human civilization as one family? Of course. But you don't even care about your own family. So you're biased against the heartless path. Jiu Wen sighed. We have no choice. This is the cultivation path of our civilization. Ba Yu stared at Luin in a daze. Bait? Jiu Wen also looked at Luin. Luin met his gaze, but he did not see a trace of shock in Jiu Wen's eyes, let alone remorse. There was nothing. Jiu Wen was terrifyingly calm. I see. Senior, what do you think of this? Luin asked. Jiu Wen said, it's war, so there's no choice. Someone has to be sacrificed. Sacrificing honorably and being used as bait are two different things. So what do you want? Luin stared at Jiu Wen. Jiu Wen's cold gaze made him feel rather uncomfortable. His ancestors had clearly fought to the death for these people and were used as bait, but they were not grateful at all. It was as if it was only natural. If they were used as bait openly, they would have nothing to say. This was a sacrifice for the sake of human civilization. However, they had been deceived. They had been deceived. They had carried the hope of survival and the guilt they felt towards everyone in the ninth base civilization. They were reluctant to part with them, and they had carried the burden of the inheritance with them as they fled. In the end, they had been deceived as bait, and that had been a huge blow to them. What they hated was not the sacrifice, but being deceived. Perhaps many people in the ninth base civilization thought that they had really fled with the hope of passing on their inheritance. However, who knew what had happened to them? "What do you want from us?" Jiao Wen asked again. Ba Yu looked at Jiao Wen and remained silent. Lu Yin's tone was low. "Do you think I'm here to collect a debt?" Jiao Wen laughed. "Collecting a debt is not something a brat like you can come here to collect. It doesn't matter if you're here to explore or if you came here by accident. Since you've experienced this before, the red shirt civilization under the astral stars can compensate you. Tell me, what do you want? Don't tell me that you can't compensate our ancestors who died. Countless creatures die every day within the square kilometer, and civilizations are destroyed every day. Death is insignificant, and it is impossible for everything to be fair in one's life. You can take revenge for the injustice they suffered. Our ancestors were wrong, and now we have to compensate them. This is the process. Kid, sometimes don't think too much. The ninth base civilization nurtured your ancestors, and your ancestors died for the ninth base civilization. This is what they should do. The path of heartlessness requires you to abandon all distracting thoughts in order to step through suffering and achieve eternal life. Aren't you curious about our civilization's path of heartlessness? I can tell you now that suffering comes from emotions. The reason it is difficult to step into eternal life is because they cannot find their own suffering. If you abandon all distracting thoughts from the beginning, suffering will naturally be less, and the possibility of stepping into eternal life will be greater. Lu Yin retracted his gaze. He did not want to look at Jiao Wen's cold eyes anymore. Jiao Wen's voice rang out. I admire your ancestors for being able to pass on their legacy and even nurture a rogue like you. However, you will eventually return to the ninth base civilization. Since you have no home to return to, come to us. Otherwise, you will be destroyed one day. Chapter 4280. Hearing Jiao Wen's words, Lu Yin nodded. Yes, they might be destroyed one day. Does your civilization have an eternal life realm? Ba Yu asked. Lu Yin said, yes. How many? One. Only one. Ba Yu was disappointed. Jiao Wen said, it's good enough to have one. After all, he's the descendant of Bait. Lu Yin frowned. However, he quickly relaxed. But with you, it's equivalent to two. Also, a scoundrel is more useful than an eternal life realm. Jiao Wen smiled at Lu Yin. A scoundrel can kill at will. You seem to like killing. Killing to stop killing is the way to survive in the universe. This is the heartless path. The distance is heartless, so there is the heartless path. Only the heartless path can step into eternal life. Jiao Wen took a sip of wine and shook the wine gourd. Your civilization only has one eternal life realm. Then you should know how difficult it is to step into eternal life. Lu Yin said, the heartless path breaks away from the essence of life. Jiao Wen's eyes flashed. Why did you suddenly think of the essence of life? Lu Yin smiled faintly. I can think of many things. Occasionally, I like to daydream. Jiao Wen laughed and shook his head. You're cultivating your state of mind, so you naturally think of many things. But little fellow, if you can't step into the eternal life realm, how can you have the essence of life? His eyes were filled with vicissitudes as he looked outside the heartless sect. Without the heartless path, do you know how many of those little fellows outside would be alive? Even if there are a few eternal life realms guarding the four directions, who can be sure to step into eternal life? Let me tell you, maybe none. Just like in your universe. The premise of the essence of life is life. Only with life can there be essence. If there is no life, what's the use of essence? Lu Yin was about to speak. Jiu Wen suddenly thought of something. Right, how did you get in? Ba Yu stared at Lu Yin. She cared about this question too. She finally got to the point. Lu Yin said bluntly, no comment. Jiu Wen looked at him. He looked at Jiu Wen without fear. Jiu Wen smiled. He took a sip of wine. Ba Yu stood up. She stared at Lu Yin. You have no right to hide anything from the sect master. Lu Yin said, so the disciples of the heartless sect. Do you not know how big the gap between you and the sect master is? Ba Yu asked. Lu Yin looked at Jiu Wen. He could sense that Jiu Wen's aura was very strong, but he wasn't sure exactly how strong it was. Legend had it that the most powerful being in this universe was Red Hero. That was the true ancestor. This Jiu Wen might have broken through to the eternal life realm on his own, or he might be an expert who conformed to the laws of two universes. Becoming a scoundrel makes you think that you can be fearless, but you don't know that the gap between you and the eternal life realm is still huge. Girl, this little guy should have seen very few eternal beings. Apart from the one in his own civilization, the eternal beings he encountered must not be very powerful. Otherwise, he might not have made it here alive. He doesn't know much. Ba Yu said, but he knows about the 9 bases. Is there no record of the 9 bases inheritance? Jiu Wen looked at Lu Yin. During the 9 bases era, your ancestors were deceived, which means that they took away some important inheritances. How much of those inheritances do you still have? Lu Yin replied, I don't know what kind of inheritance it is, but I saw the words 9th base on a mural, and it carried the resentment of the ancestors. Jiu Wen nodded and said, so be it. It's nothing much. It's not easy for you to survive until now. It's unlikely that you'll keep the inheritance. Forget it. If you don't want to say something, then don't say it. What do you plan to do now? Ba Yu looked at Lu Yin. It was impossible for them to leave. Even if Lu Yin did not want to reveal the location of their civilization, the Heartless sect would not give up on another human civilization. Lu Yin thought that he could do whatever he wanted by relying on his strength as a scoundrel. It was his ability to enter this universe, but now that they had their eyes on him, it was impossible for him to leave. It was best not to force the sect master to take action. That was a power that he could not resist. Lu Yin pretended to be deep in thought. If he wanted to leave, no one would be able to stop him. Unless the heroic ancestor was as strong as Patriarch Shan and could cover a distance of 20 years, he was confident that he could teleport away. He was not in a hurry to return to the human civilization. He wanted to stay here and see the Red Coat civilization clearly. No matter what he thought of the Heartless sect, the human civilization was still the human civilization. The Red Coats under the stars were still humans. If I want to return to the civilization I'm in, can I leave? Lu Yin asked. Ba Yu's eyes flashed coldly. Jiu Wen smiled and said, of course, but it's very dangerous to travel within a square inch. You're not in the eternal realm, so your speed is not fast. I'm willing to send you on your way. Lu Yin sat back on the chair. I want to stay here and take a look. At the same time, I want to experience the Heartless sect. Jiu Wen's smile did not change. That's fine. You can stay for as long as you want. If you want to learn the Heartless sect, you can join the Heartless sect. If you don't want to learn, it's up to you. As a scoundrel, your status in the Red Coat civilization is equal to that of the Eternal Realm. Luin was curious. 7% red coat. He did not specifically understand this. After entering this civilization, he only cared about understanding the heartless sect. The main reason was that he was stunned by the atmosphere of this civilization. It was even more cold-blooded and heartless than the Eternals. He had never thought that killing would become the constant theme of this human civilization. Ba Yu explained, there are 12 red specters under the stars, and we can determine the level of red specters. Only those who have reached the eternal life realm can become 7 red specters. Above that, there are naturally 8 red specters, 9 red specters, and all the way up to 12 red specters. There's no need to introduce the rest. It's meaningless to you. Luin did not understand. What does this mean? Jiuwen said, wherever a red coat passes, nothing will grow. It's 12% heartless sect. The yin-yang burning sky mirror refers to the red coats under the stars. The heartless sect emphasizes one's state of mind. The more heartless one is, the more compatible one is with the sect. The stronger the heartless sect, the stronger one's combat power. This is the so-called 12% heartless sect. When one becomes a red coat, one will be given a red umbrella. The umbrella's frame is supported by the heartless sect. 1% heartless sect is one umbrella frame. 12% heartless sect is one umbrella frame. Thus, one can distinguish how much heartless sect the other party is through the umbrella frame. Luin understood. This was related to the power of the red coats under the stars. Umbrella frame. It was easy to distinguish. Did anyone deliberately hide the umbrella frame? Jiuwen smiled and said, if there are no benefits, why hide? The more umbrella frames one has, the higher one's status. How much red coat are you? Luin looked at Ba Yu. Ba Yu said coldly, I don't cultivate the heartless sect. As an eternal realm expert, I was specially given 7% red coat. Luin looked at Jiuwen and asked, what about you? Ba Yu frowned. Since you were given 7% red coat, don't be too rude to the sect leader. Jiuwen waved his hand. It's all right. You are a guest from afar. I am 11% red coat. Luin asked, what about the hero ancestor? Jiuwen's expression was solemn. The hero ancestor is the ancestor of the red coats under the stars. He is also the ruler, 12% red coat. Luin was shocked. 12% red coat. Is the hero ancestor the only red coat under the stars civilization? That's right. The hero ancestor is extremely powerful. I would like to pay him a visit. Wait until you are familiar with the red coats under the stars. The hero ancestor is not someone anyone can meet. Jiuwen said. Then, he waved his hand. 3 red lights flashed from the back of the mountain and stopped in front of Luin. They were red coat, red umbrella, and red sword. Jiuwen's expression was serious. If you accept my red coat, you will be considered half a red coat under the stars. Luin, think carefully. If you betray the red coats under the stars one day, the red coats under the stars will not rest until you are dead. Even if you escape to the edge of heaven and earth, the edge of the universe, even if time passes, even if life does not exist, we will hunt you down forever. We will use your corpse as a sacrifice to our ancestors. Are you willing to accept? Luin accepted without hesitation. Hunt me down. They were both from the same civilization. Unless the red coat under the stars betrayed the humans, he would not do anything to the red coat under the stars. Even if he was really hunted down by the red coat under the stars, how could he catch up with him with his teleportation? The red coat under the stars was part of the human civilization. Behind him, there were 3 human universes. They did not know what was behind them. A red coat, a red sword, and a red umbrella. Luin was curious and had a strange feeling. From what he knew, the ones who held the red umbrella were usually women. Seeing Lu Yin accept the red coat under the stars, Ba Yu's gaze softened. Jiu Wen sized Lu Yin up. Are you sure you want to accept this red coat? Lu Yin smiled. Haven't I already put it on? Jiu Wen stared at him. You put it on too quickly. You don't understand what the red coat under the stars means. You don't understand what the path of ruthlessness means. Lu Yin was about to speak when Jiu Wen said, "Let me show you. We're both humans, and you're a guest. I can give you a chance to go back on your word." With that, he took a step forward and walked toward the starry sky. Lu Yin looked at Ba Yu. You can go back on your word. Ba Yu said coldly, you're the first. Lu Yin looked at Jiu Wen. The first person allowed to go back on his word. He followed. Since Jiu Wen wanted to bring him to see the red coat under the stars, it suited his intentions. He wanted to understand the red coat under the stars. Jiu Wen brought Lu Yin out of the universe and arrived outside the red coat civilization. They headed in a certain direction. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. That direction was the eternal realm. He wandered around the universe and saw 4 eternal realm guards. This was one of them. He had seen all 4 of them before. Did he want to understand them? Soon, Jiu Wen brought Lu Yin to see a middle-aged man. He was one of the 4 eternal realm guards of the Red Coat civilization. The middle-aged man faced Jiu Wen and bowed slowly. Sect Master. Jiu Wen nodded and gestured for the man to look at Lu Yin. His name is Lu Yin. He's from another human civilization. The middle-aged man was surprised. Another human civilization. He looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin also looked at him. Although this person's eyes were surprised, they were still covered by coldness. His gaze was very similar to Jiu Wen's. It was also similar to the gazes of many people who had killed their way out of the Heartless Valley. They were all the same kind of people. Chapter 4281. He could feel the threat that Lu Yin posed. Although it was very small, this kind of threat was something that even an ultimate powerhouse below eternal life could not bring to him. He was very curious about Lu Yin's combat strength. Lu Yin was also curious about the strength of West Peak. West Peak naturally could not compare to Jiu Wen, but the pressure that Lu Yin felt from him surpassed that of Ba Yu. Perhaps he was an expert. He could not see clearly without exchanging blows. However, it was not easy to fight someone in the eternal life realm. Alright, let's go. Jiu Wen seemed to be just bringing Lu Yin to see West Peak. He left without waiting for Lu Yin to speak. West Peak did not stop him. He just watched Jiu Wen and Lu Yin leave. Senior, are you leaving just like that? What else do you want? Talk to him. A little. Didn't you say you were going to bring me to understand the Heartless Path and the Red Coat under the stars? Jiu Wen looked at him with a smile. What do you think of that person just now? Lu Yin thought for a moment. Polite and calm. His gaze was heartless. I think he was an expert. Jiu Wen smiled and said, in order to cultivate the Heartless Path, he sacrificed himself. Lu Yin did not understand. What do you mean? Jiu Wen slowly said, eternal life is the most difficult thing to cultivate. Bitterness becomes a ravine that blocks countless people from eternal life. In order to change the situation, the Heartless Path was created. However, it is easier said than done. There have been countless attempts in the history of the Red Coat under the stars. One of the attempts is to spread the heartless toward oneself to everything. This kind of cultivation method requires one to endure extreme pain. The degree of pain is unimaginable. It is like tearing apart the flesh and blood of an ordinary person bit by bit. Sprinkle salt and close it. Then tear it apart. This is only the first step. The pain does not only come from the body. It also comes from the spirit. It comes from the torture of fear. It comes from the torture of one's own heart. In short, many people cultivate this kind of painful method and eventually give up. Even those who are considered to have great perseverance have given up. Not many people in the history of the red coat under the stars can completely withstand it. He withstood it. In that case, Liu Yin could not personally experience it. He had experienced pain before, especially when he had comprehended the battle chi of the palm realm. The pain had driven him crazy. Jiuwen suddenly asked, "Have you seen a sword forging?" Liu Yin replied, "Yes." Wine asked, "He was once forged as a sword for 10,000 years. All of his powers were restrained. Other than his form, which ordinary people could not see, he was no different from an ordinary person. He imprisoned himself. In that state, he was beaten and tempered by countless people. He was even taken by cultivators and tried to melt him. He endured 10,000 years of torture, and this was after he endured the pain and torture of the heartless Tao. 10,000 years later, he can no longer feel pain." Liu Yin's pupils shrank, and when he looked back, the expression in his eyes completely changed. This was a ruthless person. He is one of the few people who have successfully cultivated the heartless path's art of pain. There is only one other person in the current generation who has successfully cultivated it. There are still people who can master it. Let's go. I'll bring you to meet him. Jiuwen smiled and led Liu Yin in a different direction. Not long after, they saw someone with a pale face and an unsettling gaze. This youth had a deceitful aura about him. Although he said he was young, he was definitely very old. His gaze was also cold, but compared to the West Upper Peak, this person's gaze was as cold as a knife. Faced with Jiuwen, this person was not as polite as the West Upper Peak. He only glanced at him before his gaze landed on Liu Yin. He was surprised and looked at him with interest. "Scoundrel." Jiuwen faced this person with an indifferent expression. "His name is Liu Yin. He comes from another human civilization." This person's eyes widened. "Another human civilization." Jiuwen said to Liu Yin, "His name is Xingfu, 8 points red coat." With the experience of the West Upper Peak, Liu Yin respected Xingfu a lot more. He specially bowed. Junior Liu Yin greets senior. This kind of person who could endure what others could not endure was worthy of respect. Even though this person made him uncomfortable. Xingfu sized up Liu Yin. "Little fellow, what is your human civilization like? Take me to meet him." Liu Yin said politely, "My civilization is too far away. If senior wants to go, you can only wait for a chance in the future." The corners of Xingfu's mouth curled up. "It's okay. You can stay and chat with me." "Alright, let's go." Jiuwen turned around and left. Xingfu raised his eyebrows. "Sect master, let this scoundrel stay. I want to get closer to him." These words made Liu Yin feel disgusted. He believed in his own feelings. This person had made him uncomfortable at first glance, but he had been polite out of respect for the West Upper Peak. However, that uncomfortable feeling had only intensified as this person spoke. At Liu Yin's level, there had to be a reason for him to feel this way. When he thought of this, he turned around and left. Xingfu's eyes widened, and he reached out to grab Liu Yin. "Little fellow, stay." Liu Yin's gaze turned cold, and he instinctively wanted to attack. Suddenly, the sky trembled. Jiuwen slowly turned around and stared at Xingfu. He said word by word, "Back down. Let's go." Xingfu's hand floated above Liu Yin's shoulder, but he did not slap him. Faced with Jiuwen's overflowing aura, he smiled nonchalantly. "I was just joking with this little fellow. Sect master, don't mind me. I'll back down." He then slowly retreated. Lu Yin turned back to look at Xingfu. Xingfu's smile widened. Lu Yin left and followed behind Jiuwen. Once they were some distance away, Jiuwen slowly asked, "Do you know how this person managed to cultivate the emotionless path's painful tempering technique?" Lu Yin shook his head. "Of course not. Is it different from the West Upper Peak?" Jiuwen continued, "He used his family members as an experiment and experienced the pain step by step. Every time he experienced pain, his family members would experience it first. He divided the pain into different levels, allowing himself to slowly approach that level of pain until he could endure it. For the sake of this division of pain, all of his family members, friends, and even some innocent people died under the pain. Not a single one was spared, including his parents, wife, and children." Lu Yin's eyes flickered as he stared at Jiuwen in a daze. Jiuwen turned around and met Lu Yin's gaze. "What are you thinking about?" Lu Yin stared at Jiuwen and asked, "Why didn't you tell me earlier? What's the difference?" Lu Yin thought about how he had bowed to Xingfu, and he wanted to kill him. There were many inhumane people, and Lu Yin could not control them all. However, he had actually bowed to such a person, which made him feel as if he had eaten a dead fly. He had always been the one to make others suffer. He had not expected it to be him this time. Jiuwen smiled. "This is the path of heartlessness. The West Upper Peak is heartless to oneself, and Xingfu is heartless to one's family. Let's go." Next. Lu Yin looked back. Xingfu. He remembered it. The third person he saw was a woman. To be precise, she was a very beautiful woman. Her beauty was intoxicating. When he had first come to the Red Coat civilization, Lu Yin had felt that this woman was familiar when he first saw her outside the universe. Her temperament was almost the same as Wang Miao Miao's. Now that he was up close, it was even more similar. He, sect master, this little guy is quite cute. Who is he? Jiuwen asked. His name is Lu Yin. He comes from another human civilization. The woman was surprised. There's a human civilization. That's great. She approached Lu Yin, bringing with her a tempting fragrance. Even Lu Yin's cultivation could not block this fragrance. The woman raised her hand to touch Lu Yin's face. Lu Yin retreated. "Senior, please respect yourself." The woman rolled her eyes. "Why are you pretending to be pure? How old are you?" "Little fellow, tell big sister, do you like big sister?" Lu Yin looked at Jiuwen. His meaning was simple. It was time to leave. He was not good at dealing with this type of person. Jiuwen turned around and left. Lu Yin hurriedly followed. "Hey, little guy, you're embarrassed with the sect master here, right? It's okay. I'll wait for you here. Come anytime." The woman chuckled. After leaving the woman, Lu Yin exhaled. "Senior, what's her situation?" Jiuwen said, "Her name is Beauty Dan." Back then, during the Heartless Valley selection, not only did she kill everyone in the Heartless Valley, but she also used her elders to go to the Heartless Valley one by one and kill all the cultivators in that selection. Lu Yin's eyelids twitched. How many people were there? A massacre in the Heartless Valley had already filled the sky with blood. How many people had that woman killed? Why? Just because she cultivates the heartless path? Jiuwen looked at the starry sky in a daze. That time, she was the only one who joined the heartless sect. I asked her why she killed everyone. Her answer was very simple. She said that she felt that her talent was not high. Being powerful now did not mean that she would be powerful in the future. In order to prevent anyone from surpassing her in the future, she might as well kill them all. Then, she would be the strongest. Lu Yin's gaze shook. She killed everyone for this reason. Jiuwen nodded and did not say anything else. He silently walked in the last direction. Lu Yin followed silently. Morbid. Whether it was the parallel order or the beauty Dan, they all gave him a morbid feeling. Was the cultivation world like this? He could not blame the heartless path, but the human civilization that he wanted to protect was not like this. Lu Yin had seen the last person when he first came to the Red Coat civilization. He was a graceful man. Unlike the parallel order, this person had an extremely good temperament. Lu Yin had seen him from afar and had a good impression of him. Now, he was not sure. There were all kinds of people in the heartless path. Greetings, sect master. Jiuwen's voice was cold. His name is Lu Yin. He comes from another human civilization. This person looked at Lu Yin in surprise. Another human civilization. Lu Yin glanced at Jiuwen's back. He had figured out the pattern. If he wanted to know what this person in front of him had done, he could tell from Jiuwen's attitude. When facing the west upper peak, Jiuwen's attitude was normal and even smiled. When facing the parallel order, he was extremely cold and could even attack at any time. As for the beauty Dan, he was slightly colder. The last person was obviously very respectful to Jiuwen and even bowed. However, Jiuwen's attitude was not much better than when facing the parallel order. Lu Yin understood this attitude and looked at this person coldly. He did not need to care about what others thought. Even if this person was an eternal realm expert, he had the right to. Faced with Lu Yin's coldness, this person was not surprised. Perhaps he had seen too many cold people. After all, he was surrounded by people who cultivated the heartless path. Chapter 4282. Jiuwen said to Lu Yin, "His name is He Shao." Sect master, where is the other human civilization? He Shao asked curiously as he sized up Lu Yin. Was he a scoundrel? After all, he could give him pressure. He did not expect that there would be a scoundrel in the other human civilization. He had an understanding of the distance between them. A civilization that could produce a scoundrel would not be bad. Jiuwen put his hands behind his back. I don't know. He hasn't said anything yet. After saying that, he walked into the universe. Let's go. Lu Yin met He Xiao's curious gaze and turned to leave. Lu Yin, right? Do you also cultivate the path of ruthlessness? He Xiao suddenly asked. Lu Yin did not even turn his head. No. He Xiao watched Lu Yin leave with Jiuwen. His originally calm expression darkened, and his gaze was extremely cold. After leaving He Xiao, Jiuwen was in front, and Lu Yin was behind. How do you feel? He Xiao. Not much. Don't you think his bearing is very good? I don't think so. Jiuwen laughed. You're so cold because of my attitude. Be careful that he doesn't find trouble with you. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He will find trouble with me. Jiuwen pondered for a moment and said, his path of ruthlessness comes from love. Lu Yin did not interrupt and listened quietly. Love? Love. He Xiao is a top genius. Everyone who cultivates the path of ruthlessness goes in the direction of ruthlessness, but he goes in the opposite direction and cultivates the path of ruthlessness. The more he wants to enrich his emotions, he thinks that the more emotional a person is, the more ruthless he is, so he constantly experiences love before achieving eternal life. Every time he gives without holding back, every love can be praised by ordinary people and envied by countless people. But do you know what the ending of all his love is? Lu Yin was curious. What is it? Jiuwen stopped. He looked at the starry sky. He killed all the people he loved with his own hands. Lu Yin had expected it. Using his understanding of the path of ruthlessness, he had really expected it. Although he had expected it, he had to admit that He Xiao was a ruthless person. He gave his love without holding back, and that love ended by himself. He could understand how painful it was, but he actually did it. It was definitely not easier than walking around the platform hell. How ruthless. Jiuwen exhaled 3,821 people. Luyin was shocked. What did you say? The wine asked, a total of 3,821 people. Luyin stared blankly at the wine. He had thought that there would only be a few dozen people at most, and that 100 people would be ruthless enough. He had not expected there to be so many. Wine asked, using the years of a cultivator to measure this number is actually not much. He slowly turned around. Even without using mirroring, he could almost see He Zhao's sinister face. That face continuously distorted, and the faces of women appeared one after another. They were all howling in grief. In pain, in despair. He Zhao had invested his emotions. He had personally ended their relationship. He had mastered the heartless Tao and achieved eternal life, but what about the 3,821 women? They had also given their feelings, but what did they get in return? Who would be able to understand their despair? To be killed by the person they loved, to be betrayed by their feelings, to be tormented by pain, how much despair must they have felt before they died? Luyin wondered how he would feel if he had to kill Ming Yan with his own hands. He didn't even dare to think about it. Jiuwen suddenly turned to stare at Luyin and asked, "Now, are you still willing to accept this red robe? Are you willing to join the red coat civilization?" Luyin looked at Jiuwen and asked. Jiuwen shouted, "Think carefully. No one can betray the red coats under the stars. No matter who it is, the betrayer will die." Luyin grabbed the red robe on his body and stared at it. He thought that Luyin was going to lift it up and throw it out, but Luyin just stroked it. "It's wrinkled. The material is not very good." Jiuwen was stunned. He didn't understand Luyin. Luyin looked up and smiled at Jiuwen. "Their experiences have nothing to do with me. I don't plan to cultivate the heartless Tao." "Bah, you didn't cultivate it either." Jiuwen was puzzled. "Don't you hate them? Don't you hate the heartless Tao?" Luyin let out a long breath. "To be honest, I hate them. I hate many things. I hate this deep darkness. I hate those old enemies who see human civilization as ants. I hate this boundless distance. I hate that self-awareness. Can hatred change anything? As long as they don't provoke me, I won't care about them. I originally thought that the eternal life realm could change everything, but after cultivating until now, I realized that it was too laughable. There are many things that even the eternal life realm can't change. Then let them be. Thinking too much won't do you any good." Jiuwen stared at Luyin. Luyin looked back at him without hiding anything. After a while, Jiuwen retracted his gaze. "It's good that you've thought it through. I don't want to hunt you down one day." Luyin was confused. "Even if I hate the heartless Tao, I won't betray humans." "Why do you think so?" Jiuwen looked at the sky. "There are many traitors in the history of the red coats under the stars." Luyin stared at Jiuwen's back. "I feel that your attitude is wrong. You clearly cultivate the heartless Tao, but your attitude towards those 4 people is different. Your attitude is similar to mine." "Ha ha ha." Jiuwen laughed and looked back at Luyin. "Being heartless doesn't mean that you can't distinguish right from wrong. Being heartless can abandon everything, but it doesn't mean that you can hurt everything." Luyin understood. He bowed slowly to Jiuwen. "I've learned something." Jiuwen shook his head. "You don't cultivate the heartless Tao." "What did you learn?" Luyin said, "Senior, you also hate them. With such a view of right and wrong, have you ever thought that one day, you might become a traitor?" I'm used to it. I see. If you hate them, just stay away. It's all because of the heartless Tao. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. If I break their heartless Tao, will they change? Jiu Wen sneered. You'll have to try to break it. With that, he walked toward the heartless sect. The red coat civilization under the stars treated Lu Yin very well. He was a 7-point red coat, comparable to an eternal realm. There were not many eternal realm experts in the entire civilization. He was almost at the peak of this civilization. Jiu Wen let him choose where he lived. Lu Yin chose the corner furthest from the heartless sect. This was not unexpected by Jiu Wen. Lu Yin did not want his every move to be spied on by the heartless sect. Of course, with his strength, even if the Red Hero Grandmaster wanted to spy on him, he would definitely be able to sense it. The Valley of Storms was the name Lu Yin gave to the place where he lived. This place did not have a name before. Although the valley was beautiful, there were strange astronomical phenomena around it. This made it impossible for ordinary people to enter. Even if cultivators came to check it out, they would leave because it was too far away from the heartless sect. It was common knowledge among the Red Coat civilization's cultivators that the closer they were to the heartless sect, the more they would experience the heartless Tao. This common knowledge was wrong, and it was obvious after some thought. Sometimes, right or wrong was not important. What was important was one's attitude. The Heartless Valley was not the only way to enter the heartless sect. There were also some cultivators with high status who traveled the universe and took in disciples or servants. They could also enter the heartless sect. In this place, the heartless sect was like heaven. Ever since he had moved into the Valley of Storms, Lu Yin had set up a sourcebox array. His sourceboxes came from the 3 universes of the human civilization, and he did not need to collect them himself. With his status, he could just say the word, and the best sourceboxes would be sent to him. He did not even need to know who had sent them. Setting up a sourcebox array was just a form of attitude, and it could not stop an eternal realm expert. However, with this array, he would not be polite if anyone tried to spy on the Valley of Storms. After setting up the sourcebox array, Lu Yin rested in the Valley of Storms. He rested for half a year, and he did not go out during that time. His existence caused a huge commotion within the civilization. Someone had spread the news that there was such a shameless expert from another human civilization, and many people were searching for him. This was especially true for those who could not join the Heartless sect, as they hoped to find another path of cultivation. They could not see any hope in the Red Shirt civilization below the astral continent. The Heartless path was their only path of cultivation, and they desperately hoped to obtain other inheritances. There were also a few powerhouses who were searching for Lu Yin who believed that they had reached the peak of power below the Eternal Realm. They had always believed that they were strong enough to fight against an Eternal Realm expert, but the Eternal Realm experts of the Red Shirt civilization would not spar with them. This was a waste of time and karma. Lu Yin, who was clearly labeled as a shameless expert, was naturally their target. However, Lu Yin never left the Valley of Storms. In the Heartless sect, Ba Yu looked into the distance. Someone approached her from behind. Acting Sect Master. What is it? May I ask where Lu Yin is? It has nothing to do with you. I'm not the only one who wants to know. They all want to know. Ba Yu coldly asked, they? The person behind her said, almost all of them, 6/10 Red Shirt. 6/10 Red Shirt was second only to the 7/10 Red Shirt of the Eternal Realm. It was also higher than the 5/10 Red Shirt of the Crossing Calamity level. They were recognized as the peak powerhouses below the Eternal Realm. Here, the number of 6/10 Red Shirts was about the same as the number of Eternal Realm experts. Therefore, the Red Shirt civilization below the astral continent had a definition. 5/10 and 6/10 were the dividing line. Countless people hoped to become 6/10 Red Shirt. Only by reaching 6/10 red shirt could one be considered standing on the next level. However, all the 6/10 red shirts did not think so. They could never reach 7/10 red shirt. If the red shirt civilization below the astral continent had 106/10 red shirts since ancient times, only 2 or 3 of them could become 7/10 red shirts. Luin was not an eternal realm expert and did not cultivate the heartless path, but he was given 7/10 red shirt the moment he arrived. They could not accept this. Ba Yu's gaze was cold. Senior, your lifelong wish is to become 7/10 red shirt. I've been fighting for it for you. Go back. Don't provoke this person. He will not be your stepping stone. I've helped you before, but I didn't mean to. I also cultivate the heartless path. Ba Yu said, I know, but I've helped you. Acting sect master, please tell me where that person is. Ba Yu turned to look at the person behind her. It was an elder with a face full of vicissitudes. He looked much older than Jiu Wen. This person had lived for a long time, at least longer than Ba Yu. Back then, when she was in danger while cultivating, she was saved by this elder. She had always remembered this favor. Chapter 4283. I can't guarantee that you'll come back alive. He doesn't care about me, Ba Yu said. The old man said, thank you for your reminder, acting sect master. I've been pursuing a 7-point red coat all my life, and this person got it the moment he arrived. It's unfair to us that he doesn't cultivate the ruthless path. Even if I die, I want to see what this person is capable of. Xia Man and Chu Songyun aren't in a hurry. Why are you in a hurry? One is an eternal life disciple, and the other is a genius who gathered the luck of a civilization. They have a high chance of entering the eternal life realm, but I don't. Ba Yu saw that the old man was so determined. She no longer stopped him. I can tell you, but it's best to let others test him first. I can give you a clue. This person's strength should not be below mine. The old man was surprised, but he was not too surprised because this was a scoundrel. If Ba Yu was sure that this person was not as good as her, this person might not be a scoundrel. Understood. Thank you, acting sect master. In the Valley of Storms, Luin looked at the falling waterfall with a calm expression. It had been half a year. There was still no movement. If there was no movement, he would leave. Some of the news about him in the outside world was actually spread by him. His goal was to attract people over. It was not for anything else but to shorten the time for the commotion. He was a cultivator from another human civilization. His background was eye-catching, and after he came, he did not cultivate the ruthless path. Instead, he was given the identity of a 7-point red coat, and he was not an eternal life realm. This series of events was too eye-catching. It was obviously impossible to say that everyone in the red coat civilization was convinced. There would definitely be people looking for trouble. What he needed to do now was to establish his might so that those who looked for trouble would not dare to come again. Otherwise, if he returned to the human civilization, there would be people looking for trouble who rashly barged into the Valley of Storms and saw that he was not there. That would be serious. This would let Jiu Wen and the others know that he could leave at any time and guard against this move of his. Luin was confident in his own strength, but he was not confident that he could leave safely in the face of an expert like Ancestor Shan. He could only know how strong Ancestor Hongsha was after he confirmed it. At this time, he could not let some boorish people break his backup plan. Therefore, he was waiting. There would always be people looking for trouble. A few days later, someone came. Lu Yin's eyes lit up as he looked outside. This person's cultivation wasn't weak. His realm was at the great circle of the bitter disaster crossing realm, and he wore red clothes. The ribs of the umbrella did not open. He could not tell how much of a red specter he was, but since he dared to come here, he had to be at least 60% of a red specter. They're finally here. The people of the Red Coat civilization are too patient. May I ask if Mr. Liu is here? The newcomer asked loudly. His voice rippled outwards at a speed visible to the naked eye, causing a disturbance in the sourcebox array. Lu Yin ignored him. Now was not the time. The newcomer waited for a while, but when he saw that there was no response, he shouted again. This time, his voice was even louder, and it shook the sourcebox's array, causing the killing intent of the countless sourceboxes to boil. Lu Yin still ignored him. Mr. Liu, you're looking down on me. Alright, there's no need for me to introduce myself. In our civilization, there's no need for a reason to kill. After speaking, he stepped forward and faced the sourcebox array. He held the red umbrella in one hand and suddenly pulled out his right hand. The umbrella was still there, but a red sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed at the sourcebox array. Within the valley, Lu Yin did not even look. He raised a hand and flicked his finger. A terrifying force instantly caused the newcomer to feel as if he had been plunged into an ice cellar. The newcomer's movements paused, and before he could even see clearly, Lu Yin's finger force pierced through his shoulder. His body was sent flying by the enormous force, and he crashed heavily into the mountain wall outside the valley. This scene shocked everyone who saw it. This person was not the only one who had arrived outside the valley at the same time. There were others who had already arrived, but they had not yet arrived. They had been waiting for someone to challenge them. They had expected a huge battle, but they had not expected it to end so quickly and so easily. Had that Mr. Liu made a move? They had not seen him, but what was going on? The challenger coughed up a mouthful of blood and stared at the valley in disbelief. Impossible. How could it have been so easy? Even against acting sect master Ba Yu and the other 8th-ranked redcoats, he could not have lost so miserably. He had not even seen his opponent's face. How was this possible? Cracks covered the mountain peak, and when the challenger landed, the mountain crumbled. At this moment, everyone saw that there was a dark streak at the center of the mountain range. It was a power that could completely pierce through the void. Possessing this power was not frightening. What was frightening was releasing this power, but they could not even see it. This was a complete suppression of their level. Was that person really not an eternal realm cultivator? Could it be that the heartless sect was toying with them? The elder also arrived and watched in shock. He had believed Ba Yu's warning and had not rushed over to challenge the Azure Valley himself. Instead, he had spread the news to the other 6th-ranked redcoats. The one with the most violent personality had arrived, and he was in such a miserable state that the elder found it hard to believe. Could Ba Yu do it? The challenger left while clutching his shoulder. The corner of his mouth was stained with blood, and he did not dare to say a single word. He had experienced the unbridgeable gap between them. It was as if he had faced a monster. The others looked at each other and then at the elder and the middle-aged man. They were also 6th-ranked redcoats. Would they attack? After waiting for a moment, the elder left. Only the middle-aged man remained where he was. Within the Azure Valley, Lu Yin watched the fish swim past his feet and smiled as he scattered some fish food. This move was shocking enough. He wanted to know if any other 6th-ranked redcoats would dare to come. They should be getting the news soon. Within the heartless sect, Ba Yu retracted her gaze, her eyes filled with shock. Finger force. It was just finger force without any other power, but it had severely injured a 6th-ranked redcoat. Battle techniques, innate gifts. Everything was useless against this finger. She looked deeply at the Azure Valley. Even she could not do this easily. This person's power was definitely not below hers. He was truly a scoundrel. Thus, the other 6th-ranked redcoats might not dare to attack. Only those two were truly qualified to attack. In a city full of flowers, music was the only main melody. Everyone sang and danced, and it was very lively. This kind of liveliness was very eye-catching in the underworld red-coat civilization that cultivated the heartless path, but no one dared to attack the city. This was because the owner of this city was called Siaman. He was the only disciple of the beauty pill, an 8th-ranked red-coat who was at the eternal realm. The heartless path was about being emotionless, but there were also people who placed their emotionlessness outside. Siaman's emotionlessness was placed in this city full of flowers, in the people who sang and danced. On this day, the elder arrived outside the city. He looked ahead with a fearful gaze and said slowly, "Chiu Hui pays his respects to City Lord Xia." Music resounded through the city. As Chiu Hui's voice traveled over, a woman opened her eyes and sat up from another woman's lap. She smiled and looked into the distance. "Old man, why are you here?" Chiu Hui's gaze crossed the city and met the woman's. "City Lord Xia, it's been 1,000 years. How have you been?" "I was fine, but now that you're here, it might not be." The woman sneered and waved casually. "Welcome, guest." As she finished speaking, the music grew louder. At the city gate, women walked out and covered the ground with flowers. Petals scattered down from the sky as they welcomed Chiu Lao in. Chiu Lao was not happy. When he looked at the people who welcomed him, his expression grew heavier. This was a terrifying city, a city that struck fear into the hearts of all the red-clothed cultivators below the stars. Although there were flowers and music everywhere, in fact, when he looked at the sides, the people who were singing had numb gazes. They were lifeless. Those who scattered petals were repeating the same action. They were also lifeless. They all had one thing in common: they were deaf. That's right. In this city, other than City Lord Siaman, everyone else was deaf. Their eardrums had been torn, not by Siaman, but by themselves. Anyone who listened to the same song for thousands of years would become numb. Repeating the same thing would make them feel like they were dead. These people were like that. Ever since they entered the city, in their short lives of 100 years, the only sound they heard was the same song. No one could persevere. They would rather tear their eardrums and become deaf than listen to it again. The entire city was a hell disguised with flowers. Other than Siaman, no one was truly happy. Chiu Lao walked to Siaman step by step. Siaman smiled and looked at Chiu Lao. "Old man, you must be living comfortably in the heartless sect. You saved Senior Ba Yu's life back then, so you won't have to worry for the rest of your life." Chiu Lao looked at Siaman calmly. "Have you heard of recent events?" Siaman sneered. "Why, you want to use me to test Mr. Liu? Get lost." "I'm not going." Chiu Lao frowned. "You came from another human civilization, and you don't cultivate the heartless path, but you were directly awarded 70% red-clothed. Are you willing?" "Humph, whether I'm willing or not is heartless sect's business. What does it have to do with me?" "Old man, I really admire you. You even came here to sow discord. You're really thick-skinned. I just don't want to see outsiders riding on top of us." Siaman did not care. "No one can ride on top of me." Chiu Lao was about to retort when he suddenly felt that something was wrong. "Ha ha ha ha, don't treat others as fools. If you have the time, why don't you look for Chu Songyun? That guy is also a fool, but he's a good match for you. Go and trick him. Get lost." Siaman did not bother to chase him away. Chiu Lao's tone was low. "Your teacher massacred the Heartless Valley in order to become the strongest among his peers. He caused a generation of our civilization to wither. Now, Lu Yin has clearly not reached immortality, but he was awarded 70% red-clothed. He's above you. You can tolerate it, but your teacher can't." Siaman's eyes widened. "Get lost." Chiao Lao was helpless. He walked out of the city and headed in another direction. Xia Man sneered as she watched him leave. If it were not for Yu, this old man would have died long ago. How dare he trick her? She picked up her wine cup and was about to drink when a graceful figure walked in front of her. She was also smiling as she approached step by step. Her smile was almost identical to Xia Man's. When Xia Man saw who it was, her face turned pale. She hurriedly stood up and bowed respectfully. "Teacher." The surrounding people all retreated. However, after taking a few steps, they turned into a bloody mist, filling the surroundings with a bloody aura. The person who had come was Beauty Dan. She smiled as she walked in front of Xia Man. She raised her hand, lifted her chin, and sniffed lightly. A wonderful taste. Xia Man did not dare to resist. Although Beauty Dan was smiling, her viciousness was enough to give anyone nightmares. "Xiao Man, do you respect your teacher?" Chapter 4284. Xia Man hurriedly knelt down. "Of course, I respect Master. Without Master, I wouldn't be here today." The beauty pill looked down. "You practice the heartless path, but you still respect me?" Xia Man's body trembled. She didn't dare to answer. "That old man Chiao respects me more than you do. At least, he knows how fun I am." Xia Man's eyes narrowed. "I understand. I'll go now." The beauty pill smiled. She lifted her leg and lifted Xia Man's chin with her leg. She looked at her with a smile. "The more I look at you, the more charming you are. Remember, you belong to me. Hee hee." After that, her figure disappeared. Xia Man panted heavily. Sweat dripped from her forehead. Her gaze gradually turned ferocious. It wasn't directed at the beauty pill, but at Elder Chiao. If this old man didn't say those words, Master wouldn't have appeared. Sooner or later, she would kill this old man. She took a deep breath, got up, and looked into the distance. "Luin. Let's see how powerful you are." On the other side, Elder Chiao found Chu Songyun. Although Chu Songyun was a 60% red coat, he was a lone cultivator. It was easy to find him. "You are the child of destiny of our human civilization. The heartless path emphasizes heartlessness. However, you were born with a closed heart. Heartless and loveless. You have cultivated smoothly until now. However, before you broke through to the eternal life realm, you were surpassed by someone from another civilization. Don't you want to suppress him?" "Not interested." Chu Songyun was a young man with an indifferent expression. He looked ordinary, but his aura was extraordinary. Since his appearance, countless people wanted to take him as a disciple. Even the Heartless sect took the initiative to recruit him. However, they were rejected. He didn't participate in the fighting in the Heartless Valley, nor did he take anyone as his master. He walked the earth alone. The Heartless Path was known by the entire Red Coat civilization. When one's state of mind was completely heartless, it was equivalent to stepping into the Heartless Path. Therefore, it didn't matter if he joined the Heartless sect or not. He was like a person who traveled outside the civilization. He didn't participate in anything, but no one could ignore him. Elder Chiao found Xia Man first, then Chu Songyun because he knew that compared to Xia Man, Chu Songyun wouldn't make a move unless someone took the initiative to attack him. They are both 60% red coats. However, he was severely injured by Mr. Liu with a single blow. He couldn't even see how Mr. Liu attacked. "Aren't you curious how strong he is?" Chiao Lao was not satisfied. He did not know why he was so obsessed with this matter. Even if Chu Songyun defeated Lu Yin, what good would it do him? After speaking, Xia Man raised her red umbrella and placed it between her and Elder Chiu. Today, you have to attack even if you don't want to. Elder Chiu's expression turned ugly. What was she saying? If he had wanted to attack, he would have done so long ago. He knew that he would not have been able to block that attack, so how could he attack? Wasn't that courting death? He thought back to that attack and then looked at the shattered mountain range. He became even more determined. City Lord Xia, if you don't want to attack, then leave. I am not forcing you. In any case, I will not attack. You. Xia Man was furious. Her gaze was cold as she stared at Elder Chiu. Elder Chiu was determined not to attack. Helplessly, she looked at Chu Songyun and suppressed her anger. She smiled. Brother Chu, are you going to attack? Chu Songyun was silent. Xia Man smiled sweetly and leaned over. Big Brother Chu, this little sister admits that her strength is not as good as Big Brother Chu's. If Big Brother Chu doesn't make a move, then this little sister doesn't have the qualifications to make a move, right? After she finished speaking, she blew at Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun looked at her. Men and women should not touch each other. Respect yourself. Xia Man's expression froze. Who was he? How many people in the world could resist her temptation? Since that was the case, she stopped pretending. Chu Songyun, are you going to attack or not? Chu Songyun was silent. Xia Man, Elder Chiu retreated back into the crowd. Since he had already brought the person here, what happened next had nothing to do with him. Xia Man stared at Elder Chiu. This old fox. In the Zhonglan Valley, Lu Yin looked outside. From the looks of it, the most powerful 6 redcoats had arrived. However, none of them were willing to attack. What was the meaning of this? Were they really frightened by his finger? This was a redcoat civilization. Under the heartless Tao, there should be very few people who felt fear. None of them attacked. If it was not because of fear, then they were waiting for someone else to attack first. He smiled. In order to feed the fish, it did not matter who attacked first. He had already waited for more than half a year. He did not mind waiting a little longer. Everyone could wait, but Xia Man could not. She was afraid that the longer she waited, the more impatient her master would be. The timing of her master's appearance was too coincidental. How could he have heard Elder Chiu's words? Unless he had been monitoring her, but that was impossible. If he had not been monitoring her, then there was only one possibility. Her master had something to tell her. From the beginning to the end, other than asking her to come here, he did not have any other instructions. Although her master had used Elder Chiu's words to force her to come here, she still understood that her master also wanted her to test this Mr. Liu. This also meant that her master was most likely watching this place. If she waited, it meant that her master was also waiting. Thinking of this, Xia Man was terrified. She looked at Chu Songyun again and glanced at Elder Chiu and the rest unwillingly. Helplessly, she stepped forward and walked towards the Zhonglan Valley. Everyone looked at Xia Man. Was she going to attack? The most powerful of the 6 redcoats were Xia Man and Chu Songyun. One was an Eternal Life Realm disciple, while the other had extraordinary talent. If these two were not Mr. Liu's match, then that person deserved to be a 7 redcoat. Chu Songyun looked at Xia Man's back. Although he was slow, he was not stupid. Xia Man had arrived before them and kept provoking him to attack. This girl obviously could not wait. Since she could not wait, then let her attack. However, he did not expect her to be so anxious. He had thought that they would have to wait for a while. Within the Zhonglan Valley, Lu Yin looked outside. Xia Man, 6 redcoats. Mr. Liu, please give everyone an explanation. Mr. Liu does not cultivate the path of ruthlessness and is not an eternal life realm cultivator. However, he is 7 red coats. This is unfair. Lu Yin smiled. Unfair. Interesting. He continued to feed the fish and did not respond. Xiaoman waited for a while, but there was no response. Her gaze was cold. What an arrogant guy. Even the eternal life realm cultivators in their civilization would not ignore her, let alone someone from a foreign civilization. She was seen as someone who had a high chance of becoming a 7 red coat. An eternal life realm cultivator was 7 red coats. However, 7 red coats did not necessarily mean one was an eternal life realm cultivator. Since ancient times, almost everyone who cultivated to 7 red coats was an eternal life realm cultivator. There was only one exception in the records, and that was Grandmaster Hongxia. Legend had it that Grandmaster Hongxia had cultivated the path of ruthlessness to 7 red coats. It was rare since ancient times. When he broke through to the eternal life realm, the heavens would descend and he would be invincible in the universe. Legend had it that this was the only way to achieve the strongest path of ruthlessness. Xiaoman hoped to become a 7 red coat before breaking through to the eternal life realm. Many people in the outside world also thought that she could do it. Her status in the civilization was extremely high. However, only she and her master, Beauty Dan, knew that it was impossible. She could not even reach the eternal life realm, let alone 7 red coats. The rumors in the outside world were exaggerated. However, even so, the outside world thought that she could do it. Her status was extremely high, but now she was ignored by Lu Yin. How could this person? Mr. Liu, don't you plan to come out and say a few words? Lu Yin calmly fed the fish. Xiaoman's expression was gloomy. Chapter 4285. Limitless Umbrella Prison. Xiaoman used the limitless umbrella prison. Mr. Liu doesn't cultivate the heartless Tao, so he doesn't know how terrifying the limitless umbrella prison is. Once he enters the limitless umbrella prison, even if he is in the eternal realm, it will be difficult for him to fight his way out, let alone someone who is not even in the eternal realm. 6 parts Red Coat's limitless umbrella prison. We were fortunate enough to see it. Perhaps it will be of help to the cultivation of the ruthless path. As the red umbrella opened, the 6 ribs lit up one by one. Every time one of the umbrella ribs lit up, the flowers would grow one more layer, until all 6 umbrella ribs were lit up. There were 7 layers to the fresh flowers, but in reality, there were 6 layers. The first layer of fresh flowers had gradually merged into the other 6 layers. 6 parts merciless Tao, 6 parts umbrella prison. Within the deep water gorge, Lu Yin looked up. Was this the myriad parasol prison? During this period, his consciousness had covered the world, and he knew many things about the red specters under the stars, including the Sen Luo umbrella prison. The limitless umbrella prison was the signature power of the red specters under the stars. Just like the Black Apocalypse civilization's mirror sealing technique, it had similar uses. Using umbrellas as weapons. The merciless Tao was the foundation. The ribs of the umbrella split into 12 parts. Every time he mastered the heartless Tao, he would have one more umbrella bone. When the red umbrella opened, it would be called the umbrella prison. Inside the umbrella prison, the heartless Tao was the strongest flame and also the strongest poison. Any creature that entered the umbrella prison would be melted by the heartless Tao. Every additional umbrella bone would mean an additional layer of umbrella prison. Naturally, the power would be stronger. It was rumored that to break the umbrella prison, one would need to be stronger than the person who opened it. Due to the support of the merciless Tao, every additional bit of merciless Tao would double the amount of strength needed to break the umbrella prison. This was rather difficult. Therefore, anyone who fought against a red coat under the stars would be trapped in the limitless umbrella prison. Unless they were far stronger than the owner of the limitless umbrella prison, they would be trapped to death. This was the astral red spectre's ultimate technique, and the power of this technique was comparable to the Black Apocalypse civilization's Feng Jian. The Black Apocalypse was a fishing civilization, and so was the Understar red specters. The Black Apocalypse civilization had the ability to skip levels, and the red specters under the stars had the heartless path. These were two very similar methods of using power. This was the power that a fishing civilization should have. Sun Luo Umbrella Prison was equivalent to giving non-immortal level people the power to open a world because a red coat could cultivate Sun Luo Umbrella Prison. It was equivalent to the invisible world of the immortal realm. Previously, 60% red coat had been severely injured by Lu Yin's finger and had not been able to activate the limitless umbrella prison. Now, Lu Yin had seen it for himself. 60% of the limitless umbrella prison. To break it, one had to be at least in the eternal life realm or cultivate the ruthless Tao. Sherman did not test the waters and immediately used the limitless parasol prison to attack. She was well aware of Lu Yin's absolute strength, as he had defeated 60% red specters with a single finger. With such strength, she had no intention of causing trouble for him. If not for her master forcing her to do so, she would not have come at all. Since he was already here, he might as well use his full strength. Everyone looked at the Kanglan Valley. How would Mr. Lu respond? If he couldn't break through the limitless umbrella prison, he would lose. Within the Azure Billow Valley, the merciless path was wreaking havoc. The limitless umbrella prison could spread to an extremely large area, but it was suppressed by Xiaman, so it was limited to the Azure Billow Valley. Lu Yin could feel the destructive power of the limitless parasol prison. This power was both external and internal. The Tao of emotionlessness was about cultivating emotionlessness, and giving others emotionlessness as well. He could clearly feel that his emotions were being stripped away. This feeling was not good. It reminded him of those emotionless people who oversaw the various corners of the universe. This was not the human civilization that he wanted to protect. He did not have the right to judge whether the Tao of emotionlessness was right or wrong, but he did have the right to choose which civilization he wanted to protect. Since they all believed in the Tao of emotionlessness so much, he would show them what it meant to be emotionless. Lu Yin raised his hand and clawed at the sky. Claw marks appeared in the void, gradually spreading out as his fingers bent. Outside the Kanglan Valley, Sherman's expression changed. What was going on? She looked at the red umbrella and saw that the 6 ribs were bending. Look, someone cried out in alarm. Everyone looked above the Kanglan Valley and saw the 6 layers of flowers trembling and twisting as if they were being grabbed and pulled by some force. The next moment, the void suddenly distorted. From a distance, one could clearly see that it was the shape of a palm. A hand grabbed the void, grabbing all 6 layers of flowers and shattering them. At the same time, a gust of wind swept past, causing Sherman to spit out blood and her hair to fly about. Within the red umbrella, the 6 ribs broke inch by inch and shot out in all directions. Some ribs tore through Sherman's skin and stabbed into the ground, while others pierced through the umbrella's surface and shot into the distance. Sherman took 6 steps back and looked at the Kanglan Valley in shock. How was this possible? She was not the only one who was shocked. At this moment, everyone was shocked. How was this possible? Grasping the void and playing with the universe was the ability of an eternal realm. This person was not an eternal realm cultivator, so he had to be a scoundrel. However, even a normal eternal realm cultivator would find it difficult to break through the 6 layers of the limitless umbrella prison. This was their pride, the confidence that the Red Coat civilization had in the limitless umbrella prison. A non-immortal level cultivator had the confidence to fight against an eternal realm cultivator. But now, it had been shattered. That's right, it had been shattered. It had been shattered as easily as a teacup. The shock brought about by this scene was unparalleled. It was as if their beliefs had been shattered. There was silence outside the Kanglan Valley. Chu Songyun's eyes shone with a strange light, and his entire person was excited. This person had forcefully broken through the path of ruthlessness. What a domineering person! Elder Chiu gasped. Fortunately, he had not attacked. This was no longer something that could be explained by the limit of combat power below the eternal realm. Even a scoundrel might not be able to explain it. This person was definitely an eternal realm cultivator. He had hidden his cultivation, and no one could see through it. Xia Man's face was pale. She slowly put down the broken red umbrella and spat out another mouthful of blood. She bowed deeply to the Kanglan Valley and turned to leave. At this moment, she had nothing to say. No wonder she had been ignored. The other party did not even look at her. They were on two different levels. In the Kanglan Valley, Lu Yin retracted his hand and moved his fingers. They were quite hard. This limitless umbrella prison was not bad. It was a pity that one had to cultivate the path of ruthlessness. If it had been Master Qudang and the others, they might not have been able to break it so easily. For example, if Startle Gate Shangyu wanted to break this limitless umbrella prison, he would have had to use Startle Cloud. It could only be said that the woman was unlucky to have met him. He was the strongest. In terms of strength, he was confident that even Teal Lotus Shangyu could not compare to him. He had not used his full strength yet. But that woman was not an eternal realm cultivator. If those eternal realm cultivators had used limitless umbrella prison, he would not have been able to break it so easily. To break this limitless umbrella prison, it would consume a lot of energy. Now, would anyone still want to trouble him? Lu Yin looked outside the Kanglan Valley. After Xia Man left, everyone looked at Chu Songyun. Although Elder Chiu and another 60% red coat were present, only Chu Songyun was qualified to fight. However, the crowd did not expect much from him. His strength was not stronger than Xia Man's. They were about the same. Xia Man was so miserable. Would he still dare to challenge her? This was also the reason why Xia Man left directly. If she was like this, so was Chu Songyun. Looking at the Kanglan Valley, Chu Songyun lifted his feet and walked forward step by step. Everyone was surprised. He still wanted to fight. Facing the Kanglan Valley, Chu Songyun slowly bowed. 60% red coat, Chu Songyun. Please advise me. Lu Yin looked outside the Kanglan Valley. His eyes flashed. This person was not right. He cultivated the path of ruthlessness like the others, but he gave Lu Yin a sense of incompatibility. His path of ruthlessness was higher than that woman's. Others could not see it. Even those eternal realm cultivators could not see it, but Lu Yin could. He had been building a high wall of his mind all these years. This Chu Songyun's state of mind was very contradictory. You are very contradictory. Lu Yin's voice rang out, causing the crowd outside the valley to be surprised. This was the first time Lu Yin had spoken. Everyone looked over. Xia Man did not let Mr. Lu speak. How did Chu Songyun do it? Was he stronger than Xia Man? Chu Songyun looked deeply at the Kanglan Valley. Yes, I am very contradictory. Can Mr. see it? You should not be here. Chu Songyun bowed again. Mister, please show me the way. You were born with a closed heart and are emotionless and loveless. You're very suitable for the heartless path, but it's a pity that it's not suitable for you. Lu Yin could tell that this person did not want to cultivate the heartless path at all, but his constitution forced him to do so. This person was very pitiful. The people outside the valley looked at Chu Songyun. What did he mean? He was suitable for cultivating the path of ruthlessness, but the path of ruthlessness was not suitable for him. Was there anyone in this universe who did not want to cultivate the path of ruthlessness? Chu Songyun maintained his bow. Mister, please show me the way. I can't show you the way. Chu Songyun said, Mister, you can show me the way. Please take me away. I want to go to Mr. Civilization. As soon as he said this, the people outside the valley were in an uproar. Chu Songyun wanted to leave. This could not be. He was a talented person born from fate. He was born with a closed heart. He was suitable to cultivate the path of ruthlessness. Even the emotionless sect had invited him several times. He could not leave. Elder Chiu looked at Chu Songyun and felt that he had caused trouble. In the emotionless sect, Ba Yu kept looking at the Kanglan Valley. With the ability of an eternal realm, she could see and hear everything in this universe. Chu Songyun wanted to leave the red shirt under the stars. This was something they knew long ago. This person did not want to cultivate the path of ruthlessness. His path of ruthlessness was passively cultivated. Even so, he had cultivated to 60% red shirt. He was definitely the first person among the 60% red shirt. As long as he was willing, he could become the disciple of any eternal realm at any time. However, he did not want to cultivate the path of ruthlessness. In the entire civilization, only she could be his master. However, he did not like her. This made Ba Yu sullen. No matter what, Chu Songyun could not leave. He would definitely break through to the eternal realm and become a red shirt under the stars powerhouse. Want to leave? Impossible. Lu Yin's voice came from the Kanglan Valley. I can't even leave. How can I take you away? Chu Songyun said respectfully, Mister, there will be a day when you break through to the eternal realm. When that time comes, no one will be able to stop you. I am willing to serve you until the day you break through to the eternal realm. I hope you can take me away. Serve. Lu Yin looked over. This would not do. Wouldn't it be exposed? Moreover, this Chu Songyun was definitely the treasure of the red shirt under the stars. If he was here, wouldn't Ba Yu and the rest be watching him? How could he allow this to happen when he had reason to stare at him? Go back. Mister, please take me away. I don't plan to leave. Then I will serve you until you want to leave. Lu Yin. Chapter 4286. From the Heartless Sect, Ba Yu stared at the Valley of Storms. None of them could leave. Outside the Valley of Storms, Chu Songyun's attitude was firm. He did not want to stay here. The suppression here made it hard for him to breathe. All he saw was killing. Heartless dominated everything. Although he was heartless and had no love, that was innate. He always felt that if one did not care about anything, what was the point of living? Once upon a time, he told others about this idea and became a weirdo in their eyes. He was a madman. Now, he wanted to find his weirdo and leave this civilization. I remember that Ba Yu does not cultivate the heartless path. Why don't you look for her? Lu Yin's voice rang out. Chu Songyun said, she is not worthy. Lu Yin. So direct. Elder Chiu and the rest's expressions changed. They immediately ran away. This was too harsh. From the Heartless Sect, Ba Yu's expression was ugly. She took a step forward. When she appeared again, she was already outside the Valley of Storms. She stared at Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun's expression was calm. He did not care. Ba Yu wanted to say something, but looking at Chu Songyun's back, she could not say anything. This was one of the disadvantages of the heartless path. Many people did not think before speaking. This was related to everyone's heartless path. For example, Chu Songyun. For example, Elder Chiu. Xia Man and the rest were different. He did not fear anyone and did not care about what he said at all. Just like how he dared to say that he wanted to leave the red coats under the stars outside the Valley of Storms. If it were Xiaman and the rest, they would not dare to say such things. When facing such people, one could only ignore them. Otherwise, no one could do anything. Ba Yu glared at the Valley of Storms and left. Lu Yin shook his head. This person from the Heartless Path was really harsh. Mr. Lu, please give me a chance to serve you, Chu Songyun shouted respectfully. At this moment, besides Chu Songyun, there was no one else outside the Valley of Storms. Lu Yin's head hurt. He did not know how to deal with this person. He did not expect such a freak to appear in the red coats under the Heartless Path. Beat him, it was useless. This guy was not afraid of beating. Kill, it was impossible. He could fight with his life. Throw him away. Where could he throw him? He couldn't possibly throw him into the square inch distance, right? That would be no different from killing him. Right. Lu Yin's eyes suddenly lit up. He looked outside the Valley of Storms. Ba, you came by just now. You said that she is not worthy. Heartless sect. Ba Yu had just returned, and when she heard Lu Yin's words, she was not happy. Instead, she was furious. She knew that it was impossible to reason with someone like Chu Songyun. The more she tried to reason with him, the more troublesome it would be. Furthermore, Lu Yin did not look like someone who would speak up for her. Sure enough, Chu Songyun opened his mouth. She's indeed unworthy. Ba Yu's expression was extremely ugly. Why not? Ba Yu clenched her fists and stared at the Valley of Storms. What did this mean? You still want to discuss it? Chu Songyun was very serious. Although she did not cultivate the emotionless Tao to attain immortality, she did so with the help of Elder Jiu Wen's strength. Even the red robes beneath the stars know that after she was abandoned by that bastard He Shao, if not for Elder Jiu Wen, she would have died long ago. Lu Yin was curious. What? Ba Yu was abandoned by He Shao. Shut up. Ba Yu arrived at the Azure Billow Valley again. With a casual wave of her hand, she sent Chu Songyun flying. Chu Songyun was caught off guard and did not even have the chance to defend himself. His body crashed heavily into the distance. She stared at the Valley of Storms. I don't need you to discuss my matters. Lu Yin coughed, sorry. Ba Yu snorted. She turned and stared at Chu Songyun before leaving. Chu Songyun wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and silently walked back to his original position. Yes, she was abandoned by He Shao. Lu Yin was speechless. He had picked up the topic again. Was he really not afraid of death? In the Heartless sect, Ba Yu had just returned and heard this. She clenched her fists, and her eyes were filled with murderous intent. She really wanted to kill Chu Songyun. Her mental state once had a flaw. It was all due to luck that she was able to attain immortality. I can't figure out how such a person could attain immortality. I can only say that Elder Jiu Wen is too powerful. Chu Songyun was still talking. Lu Yin was afraid that Ba Yu would come and kill him. To be honest, he suddenly admired Chu Songyun. It was not because of anything else, but because this guy respected him. He even dared to say that Ba Yu was unworthy and called He Shao a bastard. However, he respected Lu Yin so much. This was not an act. Such a person could not be faked. Chu Songyun gave Lu Yin the feeling that he was in a three-man universe. This was because they respected Lu Yin so much. Alright, I got it, Lu Yin interrupted and glanced at the Heartless sect. If this continued, Ba Yu would come again. There was also Jiu Wen. This old guy had also appeared. He was probably worried that Ba Yu would not be able to resist killing Chu Songyun. To the red coats under the stars, Chu Songyun was really important. Lu Yin muttered to himself for a moment. Do you really want to go with me? Yes, Chu Songyun replied firmly. Lu Yin said, in our civilization, humans do not cultivate the heartless path. Everyone respects each other and is loyal. Do you want to go there? Chu Songyun's eyes were burning. I can't ask for more. Alright, then go and look for Ba Yu. Chu Songyun. Ba Yu. Lu Yin looked outside the Azure Wave Valley. What you just said was too insulting. If I bring you to our civilization, you will be a burden to many people. Hence, if you want me to bring you to our civilization, the prerequisite is that you have to learn how to get along with people. Ba Yu does not cultivate the heartless path, and you just happen to offend her. Go and find her and ask for her forgiveness. Then, go and find those ordinary people who do not cultivate. Do 10 good deeds every day for 5 years. After that, come and find me. Chu Songyun looked at the Azure Wave Valley expectantly. Is this a test for me? Yes. Understood. Rest assured, I will definitely ask for Ba Yu's forgiveness. With that, he left and headed towards the Heartless sect. At the same time, in the Heartless sect, Ba Yu was stunned. There was such a thing. What forgiveness? Did the red coats under the stars have the word forgiveness? Those who cultivated the heartless path did not have any humanity. This word was too unfamiliar. The key was that she did not want to have any contact with Chu Songyun. Seeing Chu Songyun heading towards the heartless sect, Ba Yu thought about it and went into seclusion. Even further away, Jiuwen laughed and took a sip of wine. People from other civilizations were indeed different. In the Azure Wave Valley, Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally sent this guy away. He had even made him pester Ba Yu so that she could not keep an eye on the Azure Wave Valley. If he was in the Azure Wave Valley, it would be fine even if Ba Yu kept an eye on him. However, he was afraid that Ba Yu would suddenly come after he left. That would be troublesome. For the time being, that should not be the case. When he thought about this, Lu Yin used his mirroring technique. It was time to leave. Not long after, Lu Yin teleported away and reappeared at the core space. When he looked back, he was already very far away from the red coats under the stars. He looked into the distance again and teleported several times before returning to the human civilization. He looked for Mr. Mu, Blood Tower's Shangyu, and the others for a discussion. Qinglian Shangyu was in seclusion and would not come out for the time being. Lu Yin told them about the situation of the red coats under the stars, and they all fell silent. The heartless path. If it was just cultivation that made one emotionless, it would not be a big deal. However, this was the cultivation path of a civilization. It made an entire civilization cold-blooded and murderous. This was completely different from what they knew about human civilization. In particular, He Zhao's actions and those eternal realm cultivators were unacceptable. Everyone said that cultivators were emotionless. This emotionlessness did not come from killing, but from indifference to emotions. Jiuwen was right, there were right and wrong in being emotionless. They could not accept those eternal realm cultivators no matter what. How many people were like that in the entire red coats under the stars? Was the hero ancestor such a person? Everyone was silent for a moment, not knowing what to say. Lu Yin's expression was complicated. They had found the red coats under the stars, but it was better not to find them. Once the red coats under the stars came into contact with their human civilization, he was not confident that both sides could coexist. First of all, those eternal realm cultivators were troublesome. They were really evil. Since the heartless path is a cultivation technique, it's not impossible to break it, Blood Tower's Shangyu said. Zhang Feng said, why do we need to break it? It should not exist, but it does not mean it cannot exist. As someone who had killed his way out of the apocalypse, Zhang Feng's thoughts were sometimes crueler. Back then, it was he who had ordered people to bring the hive to the spiritualized universe and lead the hive civilization there. Otherwise, the first place the hive civilization attacked would have been the Tianyuan universe. Luyin would not have been able to make it in time, and the Tianyuan universe might have been destroyed long ago. Blood Tower's Shangyu did not refute. He had cultivated to the eternal realm and had seen everything. Mr. Mu said, "We don't actually need to interact with the redcoats under the stars. The distance is too far, unless one of the civilizations is facing a disaster." Luyin nodded. "So I've thought about it. Let's do an experiment to see how big the impact of the heartless path on our civilization is. If it's too big to make up for, then we can't come into contact with the redcoats under the stars and treat them as if they don't exist. If it's not too big, or if the people of our civilization can stay true to themselves, then we can contact the redcoats under the stars and help each other." Startled Shangyu's voice was cold. "Those eternal realm cultivators will help us." Luyin was confident. "If they can't beat us, then they will help each other." "Don't forget about Red Hero," Blood Tower's Shangyu reminded. Luyin's expression was serious. "I will try my best to see through the redcoats under the stars. Compared to them, our biggest advantage is teleportation. No matter how powerful Red Hero is, he can't teleport. Don't expose teleportation. The redcoats under the stars might know," Jiang Feng reminded. Luyin thought about it. After all, the redcoats under the stars existed during Jiulei's time. If they knew about the celestial plume civilization, then Jiulei must know as well. Once the redcoats under the stars knew that he could teleport, no one could predict the outcome. Luyin sent Mr. Mu and Jiang Feng back to the Tianyuan universe. He went to Yihai in the mangrove forest to see Hong Er again. "Have you heard of the Heartless Path?" Luyin asked directly when he saw Hong Er. Hong Er was surprised. "How do you know about the inheritance of the redcoats under the stars? Was it also an inheritance?" Luyin used karma as the basis for his search. Previously, he used karma to check on Hong Er's past. However, he did not know about the Heartless Path at that time and could not find it accurately. A person had a lot of experience. It was impossible for him to see through all of Hong Er's experiences. Now, it was different. He used the Heartless Path to search. This was the simplest and most realistic way. Chapter 4287. He had seen scenes of cultivation in Ruby's past, but the results disappointed him. Her cultivation of the ruthless path was extremely shallow. It could even be said that her cultivation was crude. "You don't seem to know much about the ruthless path." Ruby knew that Luyin was looking at her karma, but she did not mind. "More than half of the ruthless path has been lost. Our civilization only cultivates part of it. If not for that, we would not have needed Master to save us. A true redcoat below the stars is very, very strong." "How many points are there in the ruthless path?" Luyin asked. Ruby was shocked. "How many points?" This was something that only those who cultivated the ruthless path would know. She was excited. "Mr. Lu, do you know something? Did you find my civilization?" Luyin asked. "Answer me. How many points are there in the ruthless path?" Ruby suppressed her excitement and answered, "Legend has it that there are 9 points." Luyin's eyes flashed. 9 points. Where did this legend come from? Ruby shook her head. "I don't know. It was just passed down. Perhaps it has something to do with the 9 bases. 9 points is the limit. You know about the 9 bases?" Luyin was surprised. Ruby nodded. "I know a little. But not much." Luyin was about to ask something else. Suddenly, a chill flashed through his mind as he stared at Hong. The words 9 bases. How did you know about the 9 bases? Ruby did not hide anything and answered everything he asked. It's a legend of our civilization. You didn't learn about it here. How can you know about it here? Ruby was puzzled. Luin stared at Ruby. No, this was definitely not right. This civilization knew about the 9 bases. It had come from ancestor Shan. Luin had gone to the 7 treasures heavenly toad and learned about the 9 bases through ancestor Shan. He had learned about the peak of the human race, and soon after, Azure Lotus Protector and the others had learned about it as well. It should have gradually spread through this civilization, but not much. When Ruby mentioned the 9 bases, Luin subconsciously thought that she had learned about it after him, but she had only said a few words from their civilization. This was not right. This proved that Ruby had known about the 9 bases before him. At that time, no one had known about it. Even the jade stone that Azure Lotus Protector had shown him had blurred out the number 9 and could not be seen clearly. There was only one base. This proved that no one before him had known about the 9 bases. But Hong knew. Hong had been brought here by Lord Blue Lotus. If she knew, how could Lord Blue Lotus not know? Did Lord Blue Lotus not know anything about Hong, or civilization? A person who cultivated karma, even if the direction of development was different from his. He focused on killing, but because he comprehended karma, he could more or less find out some things. Why hadn't he heard of 9th base? Had he really never heard of it, or had he heard of it and decided not to mention it? Luin stared at Hong. Does Azure Lotus know about the 9 bases? Have you ever mentioned the 9 bases to Minister Qinglian? Luin heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. If Lord Green Lotus knew about Jiu Lei but deliberately concealed it, then that was not right. Even though it was meaningless to hide the fact that he had once given up on the Red Coat civilization, just like how he had stopped Hong from talking to him. But there could be other reasons. Everyone had their secrets. Ruby. Not only did he want to find out Azure Lotus Protector's secret, but this secret involved the entire human civilization. He did not know what to think. His mind was in a mess. Recent events had challenged his understanding. Azure Lotus Protector had always protected human civilization, but he had given up the entire universe of the Red Coats, leaving the countless people in that universe to fend for themselves. To him, he did not care about right or wrong. His past grievances were beyond Ruby's knowledge. If he still hid the fact that he knew about the 9 bases civilization, then it was normal for a person to have secrets, but it would be abnormal if they had too many secrets. Did Azure Lotus Protector know about the 9 bases civilization before he went to the 7 treasures heavenly toad? Ruby. She had never mentioned the 9 bases civilization to Azure Lotus Protector, just like how she had completely concealed the fact that she came from the Red Coats. The other 7 fairies did not think that she was human. If this did not involve his state of mind, he would still hide it. Ruby did not understand why Ruby was so obsessed with the 9 bases civilization. It was just a legend, and even in legends, it was very vague. Luin left the mangrove forest and arrived at the edge of the Sea of Yi. He gazed at the boundless Sea of Yi, unable to let go of his worries. Azure Lotus Protector had always protected humans and helped him. In his heart, Azure Lotus Protector was a kind elder. He hoped that this elder would always be the same and would never change. He hoped that Azure Lotus Protector did not know about the 9 bases civilization before him and did not deliberately hide it. Even if he did hide it, it would be to hide the fact that he had given up the Red Coats. Ruby. Hope. When there was too much hope, was it still hope? Instead of thinking about it, he might as well ask Azure Lotus Protector directly. However, Azure Lotus Protector was in seclusion. Luin thought about it and released his karma heavenly Tao, which gradually spread towards Yi. "What are you doing, Mr. Lu?" Luin answered, "I had an epiphany while observing the karmic sea." Ruby. "You are indeed Mr. Lu. Please help yourself." Then, he retreated far away. The karma's celestial phenomenon covered the entire universe, and the ruby. 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 It was not strange for Ruby to have an epiphany. Even though this was the Yi Sea and there was the power of the azure lotus, Mingzhuo believed that his master would not object to Luin cultivating here. He remembered that his master had said that Ruby was a variable in the current human civilization. He was also a leader. Every improvement he made meant the improvement of human civilization. Epiphany often meant a breakthrough. He also hoped that Ruby would break through. If Ruby was already so strong, how strong would he be if he could break through to the eternal realm with karma? Ruby could not imagine it. Ruby. Ruby. Of course, Ruby was not having an epiphany. He wanted to use his karma to search the ruby. He wanted to comfort himself and turn his hope into reality. Karma spiraled back and forth. It did not touch the sea of karma itself. It was the power of the azure lotus defense, but it touched everything above the sea of karma that was not karma. It even touched the lotus pond that he had fallen into. If someone who could see karma was here, they would be shocked. Karma spirals flew everywhere in the ruby. The karma's celestial Tao covered everything. For 3 days, the karma spirals pierced through countless things. They did not even let go of stones. Some stones were touched more than once. Ruby gradually calmed down. He knew that his actions were meaningless. If the ruby of azure lotus protector was deliberately hiding something, there would not be any flaws. But he still did it. He turned his hope into reality and suppressed his doubts and uneasiness. This was his goal. Suddenly, Ruby's gaze trembled. He stared blankly at a corner. It was the location of the ruby. When he had comprehended the ruby murals, he had comprehended the karma city wall. He had even broken a piece of the murals. At this moment, Ruby stared at the murals. The murals were carved on a stone. There was a mark on the back of the stone. It was very faint and almost unnoticeable. Ruby. 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 The shape was a gourd. A wine gourd. It was exactly the same as Jiu Wen's. This alone did not mean anything. The ninth spirit of the spiritualized universe and Qing Xing of the nine heavens universe both used wine gourds to drink. Wine gourds were very common. However, what really caught Ruby's attention was the mark on the back of the stone. He had seen that mark before. It was the mark of the Heartless sect. Every sect, family, and power had its own unique symbol that represented that power. The Heartless sect was no exception. The mark on the stone was the mark of the Heartless sect. This wine gourd belonged to Jiu Wen and could not belong to anyone else. 3 days had passed, and Ruby had not noticed it at first. However, the karma spiral had flown around randomly, and he had finally touched the back of the murals just as he was about to leave. He had touched the mark of the wine gourd. The Heartless sect's Jiu Wen had been here before. Ruby retracted his gaze and did not alert the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector. He acted as if nothing had happened and left. He wanted to go to the Red Shirt civilization and find out what was going on. Jiuwen had been to the Ruby of Azure Lotus Protector's conversation with the Red Shirt civilization. Why had he not mentioned it? Why had he hidden the ninth base? What was the Red Shirt civilization that the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had given up on? It was definitely not the Red Shirt civilization that Ruby had been to before. That civilization was not necessarily weaker than the current human civilization. Why had the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector given it up? Since the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had hidden this matter, it was impossible for him to know about it here. Ruby believed that the Blood Tower Protector and the Startled Gate Protector did not know about it, so he could only search for answers in the Red Shirt civilization. Based on the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector's actions, Ruby of Azure Lotus Protector should trust him unconditionally, just like how the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector sometimes trusted him unconditionally. However, when he thought about Heartless Valley and the Redcoats beneath the stars and the few Eternal Realm cultivators, Luyin felt disgusted. Then, he thought about how Qing Lian Shangyu had given up on Hong Er's universe and left the humans in that universe to fend for themselves. He felt that this was in line with the Heartless Path. Was this in line with the Heartless Path? If so, what should he do? He did not wish for the elders that he respected to become parallel. Based on his interactions with the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector, it was unlikely that someone like He Xiao would be like that. Wait a minute. Ruby's expression changed. If the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had communicated with the Red Shirt civilization, then Jiao Wen really did not know that he could teleport. Judging from Jiao Wen's posture, it seemed that he really did not know. Ruby took a deep breath. No matter what, the fact that he had been able to escape from the Red Shirt civilization meant that even if Jiao Wen knew about it, he would not make things difficult for him. In that case, he could investigate. Perhaps Jiao Wen's arrival was just an accident. No matter what, the Red Shirt civilization was still a human civilization, and they would not make an enemy out of them. Otherwise, the Red Shirt civilization would have killed their way over after so many years. Even if the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had hidden this matter, he had his own reasons. No one had said that he had to reveal his secrets. However, whether or not the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector revealed it would not affect Ruby's investigation. Ruby found the Blood Tower Protector and asked him to find a group of people who were good at swindling and had rich emotions. He wanted to bring them to the Red Shirt civilization and see what the results would be. This experiment would directly affect how the three universes interacted with the Red Shirt civilization in the future. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 4288. Of course, this was only on the surface. What Luyin really wanted to do now was to investigate the relationship between Jiao Wen and the Azure Lotus Emperor. He wanted to do something under the premise that Jiao Wen thought he was completely unaware. Next, he would head to the Red Coat civilization. Before he left, he made a special trip to the Tian Yuan cosmos. He found Mr. Mu and told him about his discovery. In the current human civilization, he trusted Mr. Mu the most. Mr. Mu was his master. Without Mr. Mu, there would be no him. Mr. Mu did not expect such a thing to happen. He looked in the direction of the Nine Clouds universe and said, "Don't tell anyone about this, including Jiang Feng. It's not that I don't trust him. His experience has made him think differently from us. It's similar to you. Once I tell him, I'm afraid it will affect his attitude towards the Azure Lotus ruler." Luyin replied, "I understand. Uncle Jiang will overthink things just like me." Mr. Mu said, "It's not a bad thing to think too much. If you didn't think too much, how would you have discovered this?" Luyin's heart was heavy. "Master, what should I do?" Mr. Mu looked at Luyin. The Azure Lotus Shield held a very high position in Luyin's heart, and he respected the Azure Lotus Shield, as well as the Blood Tower and the Gate of Wonder. He respected them all. He had to admit that. The few eternal realms from the Nine Firmaments universe treated Luyin very well. Therefore, he discovered the situation now. Luyin was at a loss. He had thought that he could handle this matter rationally and investigate the red specters under the stars. Then, he would look for the Azure Lotus Emperor. No matter what reason the Green Lotus Emperor had for hiding it, everything had to be explained clearly. At the very least, this was a matter between human civilizations. At the very least, there were no enemies. Furthermore, even if the Azure Lotus ruler had a secret, why did he have to tell him? There was nothing wrong with the Azure Lotus ruler. This was the logic, but it involved another human civilization and also involved the heartless path. He wanted an answer and did not want the Azure Lotus Emperor to walk in the direction of the heartless path. Luin was very clear that he had overthought this matter. The massacre in Emotionless Valley had caused him to reject the red shirt civilization beneath the astral plane, and he had even discovered that the Jade Lotus Emperor had concealed his contact with Jiuwen. This made him want to find out the answer, and he did not wish for the Jade Lotus Emperor to have anything to do with the heartless path. Mr. Mu patted Lu Yin's shoulder. "Little Seven, do you believe that people can change?" Lu Yin fell silent. "If one day you discover that I have betrayed humanity, what will you do?" Lu Yin's body trembled as he looked at Mr. Mu in shock. Mr. Mu looked at Lu Yin as well, and when their gazes met, Mr. Mu saw the confusion and even fear in Lu Yin's eyes. He sighed deeply. "Is it hard to decide?" Lu Yin remained silent. He didn't say anything. Mr. Mu said, "There's no sense of accomplishment in being your master. You're too talented and you're blessed with many opportunities. Every time I see you, I get a different feeling. Sometimes, I wonder if you'll surpass me the next time I see you." The first time this idea appeared was in the Tian Yuan universe. Back then, you did not know the square inch distance. Mr. Mu laughed. "It's funny, isn't it? Now you know how big the gap was between you and me back then." Lu Yin looked at Mr. Mu. "Was there a difference?" "It was bigger than the sky. During the battle in Immemorial City, he thought that he was very strong. However, when facing Yu Sang Tian, he didn't even have the strength to fight back. If it weren't for the tricks left behind by fate, they would have been finished." At his peak, Mr. Mu was a scoundrel who could unite with the will of the universe and injure an eternal life realm expert. For Mr. Mu to have such thoughts, Lu Yin could imagine how high Mr. Mu's expectations of him had been. "Having a disciple like you is both a blessing and a misfortune. I don't have much to teach you on the path of cultivation. Fortunately, I'm much older than you, so I can teach you a principle." Mr. Mu's expression was solemn as he looked at Lu Yin. "If there comes a day when I betray humanity, you should not hesitate. Kill." Lu Yin's pupils shrank as he stared at Mr. Mu. Mr. Mu was very serious, so serious that it was terrifying. "Because the one who betrayed humanity is no longer your master. From the moment he decided to betray humanity, he became another person. Your master will never betray humanity. Remember this, and always remember that your master will never betray humanity. Therefore, the one who betrayed humanity is not your master. Kill. Do not hesitate, do not be lost, and do not be afraid. This traitor killed your master. He destroyed your master's personality and trampled on your master's dignity. This person is an enemy. Kill him and avenge your master." Lu Yin stared at Mr. Mu in a daze. Mr. Mu raised his hand and patted Lu Yin's head. "I am like this, and so are others. The one who helped you is one person, and the one who harmed you is another. The physical body did not change, but the personality changed. This person killed someone you respected, so you must avenge him. The person you killed is not the person you respected, but the enemy." Lu Yin's voice was dry. "Yes, like this." Mr. Mu retracted his hand and sighed. "It's very difficult, isn't it?" Lu Yin nodded subconsciously. If Mr. Mu betrayed humanity, would he really kill him without hesitation? If Qing Lian Yu concealed his contact with Jiu Wen and did something that was detrimental to the three human civilizations, would he really kill him without hesitation? Mr. Mu sighed. "Your cultivation has improved so quickly that you can't look at everything in the world numbly. Some people are ruthless because of the baptism of time. What these people do may be wrong, but to them, it is not wrong. You are used to seeing life and death. What you don't want to lose is precisely what you will lose in the end. Lu Yin clenched his fists. No one can accompany you for eternity. Perhaps the appearance of the heartless path is a good thing for you. Mr. Mu looked at Lu Yin and said, "Go and get in touch with the heartless path. Perhaps it will help you." There is a reason for the appearance of any path of cultivation. Lu Yin was biased against the heartless path from the beginning and had never thought of cultivating it. However, Mr. Mu could see clearly that the heartless path might help Lu Yin make up for his lack of mental state. He had too little experience. Although numbness was not a good word, it was good medicine for some people. There were black and white walls to the mental state, but the black side was not as tall as the white side in Lu Yin's heart. Don't think too much. Qing Lian Yu concealed his contact with the redcoats under the stars because he did not want to come into contact with the heartless path. Mr. Mu comforted him. Lu Yin nodded. This was also why he was relieved. Perhaps this was the reason. Not long after, Lu Yin left the three universes and arrived at the Redcoat civilization under the stars. He teleported into the Kanglan Valley. He did not leave for long. At this moment, Chu Songyun was looking for Ba Yu in the Heartless sect. Although he was not from the Heartless sect, he could go anywhere with his status as a sixth Redcoat. Aside from a few Eternal Realm cultivators, no one was his match. However, he was also very self-aware. After entering the Heartless sect, he first visited Jiao Wen and obtained Jiao Wen's approval before looking for Ba Yu. Ba Yu was in seclusion, and when she heard that Lu Yin had given Chu Songyun a test, she immediately went into seclusion. After Lu Yin returned to the Kanglan Valley, he scanned the sourcebox array and saw that there were no changes. He then looked at the Heartless sect and decided to wait for a while before heading over. A month later, news that Chu Songyun was looking for Ba Yu spread. The outside world knew that he was looking for Ba Yu, but they did not know why. Some people even said that Chu Songyun liked Ba Yu, and this rumor spread even further. It even reached He Zhao's ears. He Zhao's heartless path allowed him to truly love every woman, and Ba Yu was the same. The more he loved her, the more pain he felt, and the closer he was to being heartless. Even though He Zhao had achieved immortality, Ba Yu had never left his heart. Ba Yu was the last woman he had ever loved. When he heard that Chu Songyun was looking for Ba Yu, he could not sit still and headed to the Heartless sect to stop Chu Songyun. "You're looking for Ba Yu?" He Zhao looked at Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun's extraordinary aura caused others to have a good impression of him, but this good impression was disgusting to those who knew about it. Chu Songyun and He Zhao's auras were similar, but one was clearly emotionless, yet he wanted to be affectionate, while the other was affectionate yet heartless. These two people with similar auras were completely opposite. Facing He Zhao, Chu Songyun was not afraid. He could directly say that Ba Yu was not worthy of being his master, and He Zhao was the same in his eyes. Yes. Why? It has nothing to do with you. Ba Yu's matter is related to me. He Zhao was not angry, and he smiled as he stared at Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun was calm. "You are not worthy." He Zhao's gaze turned cold. "What did you say?" "You are not worthy," Chu Songyun said calmly. Ba Yu was not worthy of being his master, and He Zhao was not worthy of mentioning Ba Yu. That was what Chu Songyun thought. He Zhao took a step forward. His body moved, and his mind moved. His life force was released, and it pressed down on Chu Songyun. He was a 70% red robe, and no matter how special Chu Songyun was in his civilization, he deserved to die for disrespecting immortality. Chu Songyun was not afraid. He had long wanted to experience a 70% red robe eternal life realm. Life force and eternal matter were absolute powers that eternal life realm experts could use to suppress non-eternal life realm experts. Unless one reached the level of a scoundrel, it would be difficult to resist. However, those below the eternal life realm who reached the limit could comprehend life force and use eternal matter. This was the origin of the word limit, and it was the first step to becoming a scoundrel. When He Zhao's life force came, Chu Songyun's gaze was calm. Around him, withered leaves surrounded him, moving without wind. The life force swept past like a gust of wind, but it could not move the withered leaves. He Zhao was shocked, but he was not surprised. I have long heard of the 10,000 pine withered leaf realm, but it is not enough. After he finished speaking, the life force that was blocked by the withered leaves suddenly gathered, forming a white sword in He Zhao's palm. He slashed with the sword, and it was the great heavenly cycle sword intent. Chu Songyun retreated and waved his hand. Withered leaves blocked in front of him, and life force surged out from his body, connecting with the dancing withered leaves, forming a forest of withered leaves. The forest of withered leaves took root in the void, facing the great heavenly cycle sword intent head-on. In the Heartless sect, many cultivators were watching. Looking at the red robes under the stars, only Chu Songyun and Xia Man were qualified to challenge an eternal life realm expert. However, a challenge was a challenge, and it was almost impossible to win. He Zhao's sword intent slashed down, constantly shattering the forest of withered leaves, forcing Chu Songyun to retreat step by step. After all, Chu Songyun was not an eternal life realm expert. It was quite difficult for him to comprehend life force from the concept of withered leaves. The forest of withered leaves had long been integrated with eternal matter, but it still could not block He Zhao's sword intent. He Zhao raised his hand, and the sword intent rushed towards Chu Songyun, as if he wanted to kill him with one slash. Chu Songyun raised his left arm, and the red umbrella appeared in his hand. His right hand grabbed the umbrella handle, and with a clang, he pulled out his sword and slashed horizontally. Chapter 4289. The great heavenly cycle sword intent clashed with the red sword. Chu Songyun was pushed back. The red sword vibrated and made a soft sound. There were even cracks on it. He Zhao smiled and walked casually. However, every step he took was in accordance with the sword intent around him. With every step, the sword intent increased. Do you really think you can fight eternal life? They have praised you too much, but they don't know that people like you will fall harder the higher you are praised. You look down on the heartless path. Die under the heartless path. After that, the sword swept across and the sword's shadows merged. It was the step he took just now. Elder Chiu was also in the Heartless sect. He was originally from the Heartless sect. Seeing He Zhao's sword, he was shocked. The heavenly cycle sword intent and the vitality formed the great heavenly cycle sword intent of He Zhao. This is an eternal life realm technique. No one below eternal life can resist it. Chu Songyun held the sword hilt tightly. He exhaled and opened the red umbrella. Limitless umbrella prison. The dead leaves danced. It sealed the surroundings and trapped He Zhao. Then, layers of dead leaves enveloped him. It was constantly sealed. He Zhao did not care. He looked at Chu Songyun who was outside the dead leaves. You don't want to practice the heartless path. But you used the inheritance of the underworld red shirt. Is this your dignity? Chu Songyun did not care. The limitless umbrella prison was ineffective against the underworld red shirt. However, there was no other way. Compared to the eternal life realm, he was indeed much weaker. The remaining underworld red shirt could not even withstand He Zhao's sword. No, they could not even withstand the pressure of the vitality. Soon, the 6 layers of limitless umbrella prison enveloped him. Chu Songyun's eyes were cold. He raised the red sword in his right hand and closed his eyes. Victory or defeat would be decided by the next sword. He Zhao raised his eyebrows. The great heavenly cycle sword intent slashed. The limitless umbrella prison was shaken. It kept shaking. Elder Chiao and the rest retreated again. If he was facing the eternal life realm of other civilizations, the 6 layers of limitless umbrella prison would definitely give him a headache. However, the heartless path in the limitless umbrella prison was useless against He Xiao. This move could at most trap He Xiao for a while. What did Chu Songyun want to do? Where did his confidence in challenging He Xiao come from? In the heartless sect, Jiu drank a mouthful of wine. His gaze fell on Chu Songyun. Interesting. He Xiao. He Xiao was He Xiao. But even if you don't stay, where can you go? Even if the entire red robes under the stars gave up on the heartless Tao, you, Chu Songyun, would not be able to escape. Back in the Azure Wave Valley, Lu Yin was watching this battle with interest. Chu Songyun was much more powerful than Xie Man, and he was also hiding some of his strength. If He Xiao had been slightly weaker and was comparable to the humanoid green immortal or the droplet green immortal, then Chu Songyun might not have lost. Of course, it was impossible for him to win. He had not reached the level of a scoundrel. However, if he didn't lose, he was almost at the level of a scoundrel. He Xiao didn't know what Chu Songyun wanted to do. Seeing the red sword in Chu Songyun's hand becoming more and more oppressive, he didn't want to wait any longer. He didn't want to become Chu Songyun's stepping stone. He Xiao couldn't afford to lose face like that. With that thought in mind, Zhang Xian's life force surged. Taking a step forward, the great Zhou sword will fuse together and slashed out. Bang! With a loud sound, the 6 layers of the limitless umbrella prison were directly broken. Chu Songyun's red umbrella cracked inch by inch, but it did not shatter like Xie Man. He Xiao loosened his grip on the sword hilt and pushed it with his palm. The sword shot towards Chu Songyun's face. If Chu Songyun did not dodge, this sword would pierce through his head. At this moment, Chu Songyun opened his eyes. Under everyone's shocked gaze, another umbrella bone lit up. 70% red coat. That was 70% red coat. Elder Chiao was shocked, 70% red coat. The rest of the people who saw it were stunned. 70% red coat. Without reaching eternal life, but with 70% red coat. The legend was true. There was really someone who could comprehend 70% red coat without reaching eternal life. When He Xiao saw it, his eyes narrowed. What followed was a monstrous killing intent. No matter how highly Chu Songyun was valued by Jiao Wen and the rest, it was fine if he killed him. Could it be that they would blame him for killing a 60% red coat? The value of eternal life was incomparable. However, 70% red coat under eternal life was different. It was another concept, a concept that only existed in legends. Only when one reached 70% red coat under eternal life could one achieve 120% merciless Tao. 120% merciless Tao was theoretically the strongest red coat under the stars. It was invincible. Now that Chu Songyun had reached 70% red coat, it meant that he could achieve 120% merciless Tao in the future. This was not something He Xiao could accept. Facing He Xiao's sword, Chu Songyun's red sword hummed. An indescribable tragedy spread. The red sword pierced into the umbrella bone, heartless sorrow as a sword. This was a kind of realm. The realm of red sword and merciless Tao could only be comprehended by eternal life realm. This was also Chu Songyun's killer move. With 70% red coat's merciless Tao, he slashed out. Bang! The swords clashed. The crack in the void spread across the entire merciless Tao. He Xiao's sword was blocked. This was a sword that merged with his great heavenly cycle sword intent. It seemed light, but the sword intent was extremely heavy. Chu Songyun used a sword that could only be comprehended by eternal life realm merciless Tao. This sword was also the meaning of the red sword piercing into the umbrella bone. He Xiao was clearly an eternal life realm red coat under the stars. However, at this moment, everyone had an illusion that Chu Songyun was the real red coat under the stars. A shattering sound was heard. He Xiao's sword was shattered. Chu Songyun took 3 steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and the 7 umbrella bones dimmed. He tried his best, but he could only block He Xiao's sword. He Xiao did not expect his sword to be blocked. This sword could be regarded as his killer move. It was enough to make other eternal life realm experts pay attention to it. Although it was not the strongest, only those of the same level could block it. Chu Songyun blocked this sword, which meant that he had broken through the limit of eternal life realm. He had truly stepped into the level where he could fight against eternal life realm experts. He could be considered a scoundrel. This sword made Chu Songyun a god, but made He Xiao a laughingstock. He would never allow such a thing to happen. He Xiao, who boasted of his unparalleled temperament, revealed a shocking killing intent at this moment. Chu Songyun clenched his sword hilt and stared at He Xiao. He had no intention of retreating. He Xiao was about to attack when a cough sounded. He paused and looked to the side. Over there, Jiuwen slowly walked out. Chu Songyun also saw Jiuwen walking out. He slowly loosened his grip on his sword hilt. Jiuwen drank a mouthful of wine and suppressed his cough. He looked at the two. Have you fought enough? This is Heartless sect, not the wilderness. He Xiao was about to speak, but Chu Songyun spoke first. Enough. He Xiao stared at Chu Songyun, disrespecting eternal life. You deserve to die. Chu Songyun sheathed his red sword and kept the red umbrella. He did not seem to care at all. Jiuwen burped. He Xiao, what are you doing here? He Xiao looked at Jiuwen and asked, Senior, are you trying to protect Chu Songyun? This person is not from Heartless sect and does not respect the Heartless path. He wants to leave the red coat under the stars. Such a person deserves to die. Jiuwen laughed. His mouth is stubborn, but his body is honest. Look, this Chu Songyun has reached 70% red coat. Do you still think he does not respect the Heartless path? He Xiao wanted to refute, but he could not. A person who could reach 70% red coat under the non-eternal life realm, how could he not want to cultivate the Heartless path? No one would believe it even if he said it. Although Chu Songyun did say that he wanted to leave the red coat under the stars. But so what? When he revealed his power as a 70% red spectre, he was destined to be special in this red spectre civilization. Although He Xiao was unwilling, he knew that it was impossible to kill Chu Songyun in front of Jiuwen. I'm here to look for Ba Yu. Jiuwen looked at He Xiao. Ba Yu does not want to see you. He Xiao's eyes flashed, and he said calmly, Senior, please allow me to talk to Ba Yu. Jiuwen shook his head. I did not stop you, but if Ba Yu does not want to see you, you cannot force her. He Xiao bowed slowly to show his agreement, then looked in a direction. Ba Yu, come out and meet me. No one responded. Chu Songyun faced Jiuwen and bowed. I'm here to look for Ba Yu. He Xiao's gaze was sharp as he stared at Chu Songyun. Jiuwen was speechless. Did Lu Yin ask you to seek forgiveness from Ba Yu? Yes. He Xiao frowned. Lu Yin. Then you should go back. Ba Yu does not want to see you. Why? Your words are too harsh. I only know how to speak the truth. Jiuwen, He Xiao stared at Chu Songyun. Stay away from Ba Yu. Otherwise, you will not be so lucky next time. Chu Songyun faced He Xiao. You are not worthy. Murderous intent surged in He Xiao's eyes, and he turned to leave. At this moment, a figure appeared and entered the Heartless sect. Seeing this person, He Xiao's eyes flashed. Mr. Liu. Jiuwen, Chu Songyun, Elder Qiu, and the others all looked over. Lu Yin's name had already spread throughout the red coats under the stars, but not many had seen him before. There had only been 2 battles in the Valley of Storms. In the first battle, he had destroyed 6/3 redcoats with one finger and forced them to retreat. In the second battle, he had grabbed the limitless umbrella prison with one hand and destroyed Siaman's limitless umbrella prison. Although his opponents were 6/3 redcoats, he had done it too easily, so easily that it did not seem real. Especially when he had destroyed Siaman's limitless umbrella prison with one hand, it was hard to imagine. They did not know how strong Luin was, but they had already pictured him in their minds. However, they were still surprised when they saw him in person. They did not expect Luin to be so young and so thin and weak. He was completely different from the burly man they had imagined. It was also Chu Songyun's first time seeing Luin. His attitude was very respectful, not because of Lu Yin's strength, but because Luin could lead him to another path of cultivation civilization. Luin came and looked at He Xiao, but he ignored him. Then, he looked at Jiuwen and smiled, "It's so lively." Jiuwen smiled, "It's very lively." He Xiao looked at Lu Yin's back. He did not have the temperament he had when they first met. His gaze was cold. Luin looked at Chu Songyun, "Ba Yu is unwilling to forgive you." Chu Songyun was helpless, "I can't see her. This shows that you are not sincere enough. May I ask, Mr. Lu, how can I show more sincerity?" Chu Songyun asked. He was really asking for advice. In the red coats under the stars, the word sincerity was far from the cultivation world. How could there be sincerity in the path of ruthlessness? Luin glanced at He Xiao, "Help Ba Yu beat up whoever she hates the most. Sincerity is enough." He Xiao looked at Luin coldly, "Is Mr. Lu talking about me?" Luin and He Xiao looked at each other and did not answer. On the other side, Chu Songyun said, "I am not his opponent now." Chapter 4290. Luin put his hands behind his back. "Then I'll wait until you completely suppress him. Won't I have to wait for a long time? There is no time in cultivation. You can wait, and I can wait too." "Okay. I won't let you wait too long." Cold murderous intent flashed in He Xiao's eyes. These 2 people were talking about him, and he was still here. "Mr. Lu, you let Chu Songyun deal with me. Why don't you try it yourself?" Jiuwen glanced at He Xiao. He was very sure that Ba Yu was not Lu Yin's opponent, so He Xiao was not much better. However, he could see Mr. Lu's strength. The others were also curious. Luin was not in the eternal realm. However, they felt that he was stronger than Chu Songyun. At least Chu Songyun could not defeat Siaman easily. Even if he had comprehended 7 points of red, he could only be stronger than Siaman. However, it was impossible for him to break the Sen Luo umbrella prison like Luin. Luin was given 7 points of red as soon as he arrived. They wanted to know how Luin compared to a real eternal realm expert. Chu Songyun was also looking forward to it. Luin smiled at He Xiao. "You are not worthy." He Xiao was furious. Chu Songyun was stunned. He finally understood why others were so angry when he said these 3 words. It was really disgusting. Jiuwen was also speechless. "You are courting death." He Xiao was about to attack. Luin looked at Jiuwen and asked, "Senior, control your people. Don't look for trouble." Jiuwen drank a mouthful of wine. Who looked for trouble? He finally found out. This little guy was a little troublesome. "Okay, He Xiao, you can go back." He Xiao stared at Luin. "Sect Master. This person humiliated me. He humiliated the red coat under the stars. Sect Master, please allow me to fight this person." Jiuwen shook his head. "Go back. He Xiao stared at Jiuwen and asked, I want to fight with this person. Jiuwen shouted, go back. These two words were like a monstrous bell. He Xiao was shocked and took 5 steps back. He had no choice but to leave. Before he left, he stared at Luyin coldly. He would definitely make this person pay the price. Luyin praised, Senior Jiuwen is still the most majestic. 2 words scared an Eternal Realm expert away. The others weren't affected, and they didn't feel the pressure of the wine, but Luyin did. That was because those 2 words also rang in his ears, but he didn't take even half a step back. Jiuwen wanted to intimidate He Xiao, but he also wanted to warn Luyin at the same time. However, Lu Yin's strength had exceeded his expectations, and he was definitely stronger than He Xiao. He looked at Luyin deeply. Mr. Lu is still not used to the environment of a red specter under the stars. There are some things that you shouldn't do. Luyin shrugged. That's what I do in my own civilization. There aren't that many rules. This is a red specter under the stars. Could it be that the red coat under the stars does not wish to interact with the civilization that I am from? Jiuwen looked at Luyin. Are you willing to take us there? Luyin rubbed his head. I don't think I have a choice. But as a fellow human civilization, you should understand that you have to be wary of others. My civilization is the complete opposite of the red coat civilization below the stars. Killing, but our civilization is very peaceful. There is a lot of love. If the 2 civilizations meet, with the power of the red specters under the stars, we will be the ones at a disadvantage. The wine asked, then what do you want? As he spoke, he glanced at Chu Songyun. Leave. Ba Yu is in seclusion and will not see you for the time being. Chu Songyun glanced at Luyin and left silently. Don't leave the heartless sect for the time being. He Xiao will not let you go, Jiuwen reminded him. Although Chu Songyun did not know how to speak and was emotionless, he was not stupid. He stayed in the heartless sect with peace of mind. The surrounding people had already dispersed. Only Jiuwen and Luyin were left in the square. One must look at the long term. Mr. Lu, no matter how much you delay, you cannot make us ignore the other civilization. You should understand this. Luyin nodded. I understand. That's why I came to find you after half a year in the Valley of Storms. Jiuwen asked, state your conditions. There are no conditions. Jiuwen was surprised. No conditions. Luyin smiled. If there are conditions, wouldn't it be the same as betraying your own civilization? Jiuwen shook his head. We are both from the human civilization. There is no such thing as betrayal. Luyin looked at Jiuwen and stared at his gaze. This old man was really good at hiding. He could not see through the 9 heavens universe at all. If he had not coincidentally seen the gourd mark, he would not have been able to see through this. I would like to give it a try. He looked at the countless people walking on the ground outside the Heartless sect. They all wanted to join the Heartless sect, but they could not see it even though it was right in front of them. A try. Senior, please select a group of ignorant children and send them to the Valley of Storms. I will personally teach them. After 20 years, they will enter this civilization and see what happens to this group of people. Oh. If this group of people is affected by the heartless path, won't you be even more unwilling to bring us into contact with your civilization? Exactly the opposite. Lu Yin's expression was serious. If this group of people that I personally teach is still affected by the heartless path, I will immediately bring the redcoats under the stars to our civilization. Because I know very well that it is only a matter of time before the 2 civilizations come into contact with each other. If we cannot prevent them from being affected by the heartless path, it is better to come into contact with each other earlier and let our civilization cultivate the heartless path to increase their strength. Think about it. What if our civilization can have a few more eternal realm cultivators? Then, won't our civilization become a fishing civilization? Jiuwen grunted. It's good that you can think it through. But what if they are not affected? Luyin said, then it proves that the heartless path is not as powerful as I thought. This civilization's cultivation path will not bring much progress to our civilization. However, because of the heartless path's influence, our civilization will become unstable internally. This is not something that I want to see. So, Senior, do you understand what I mean? Jiuwen sighed. Either it will definitely affect you and transform you together, or it will definitely not affect you and develop separately. Is that what you mean? Luyin looked at Jiuwen and asked, Senior, do you agree? Jiuwen laughed. Alright, I'll let you see how great the influence of the heartless path is. I look forward to having a few more eternal realm cultivators in your civilization. Luyin said, alright. In that case, please promise the redcoats under the stars that they will not attack the people of the Valley of Storms. Otherwise, if they attack directly, I will lose my people. Jiuwen said, I can only guarantee that the people of the Heartless sect will not attack. There are countless people in the redcoat civilization under the stars. Even the heroic ancestor cannot guarantee this. Lu Yin's goal was to let a group of people from the three universes enter the redcoats under the stars to see if they would be affected. Now that he had achieved his goal, it was fine. If that group of people was not affected, bringing the redcoats under the stars into contact with the three universes would be fine. If they were affected, they would not be able to come into contact with them. As for the outcome of this bet, it did not depend on promises, but on absolute strength. The redcoats under the stars were very strong, but they were not weak either. Lu Yin's teleportation was enough to ensure that the redcoats under the stars would not be able to track the three universes. Of course, this was only his initial plan. Now that he knew that Chancellor Azure Lotus had interacted with Jiuwen, things were different. He still did what he had to do under the premise that he did not know about this so that no one would be able to tell. At the same time, it was more important to find out the relationship between Chancellor Azure Lotus and Jiuwen. Why did Chancellor Azure Lotus not mention the existence of the redcoats under the stars? Why did Jiuwen not say anything? Why did the redcoats under the stars not come into contact with the three universes after so many years? He wanted to know all these. A total of 10,000 people were selected to enter the Valley of Storms. They were all orphans and were still infants. They did not have any memories. When this group of people was sent to the Valley of Storms, the people from the Heartless sect received an order not to attack anyone in the Valley of Storms. This order confused the outside world because Lu Yin was the only one in the Valley of Storms. They did not know that 10,000 people had been sent in. It was not until 20 years later, when a group of people walked out of the Valley of Storms, that they finally understood. In 20 years, this group of people had grown up. 20 years ago, Lu Yin sent this group of children to the three universes. At the same time, he selected a group of children of the same age from the three universes and began to nurture them. At first, he had planned to find a group of people who were good at swindling others and send them to the redcoats under the stars. However, he realized that this was not right. This would be easily seen through. Of course, the excuse that Mount Supreme could accommodate some people was an excuse, but it would still take some effort. Thus, he had the three universes prepare a group of children of the same age to nurture. He had those who were rich in emotions and good at bewitching others to nurture them. He wanted this group of children to have a strong will and be able to influence others in turn. This group of children would also be taught cultivation, and they would be taught very carefully. After all, according to the redcoats under the stars, Lu Yin had personally taught them, so they could not be bad. After 20 years, this group of children was brought to the redcoats under the stars and then released from the Valley of Storms. These children did not know anything about the three universes. From the beginning, They had been taught that they were in the valley of storms, so they were not afraid of being seen through. The people who taught them one-on-one would all disguise themselves as Luin, and they would only know one Luin in their lives. They were all very smart and good at bewitching others. Luin did not believe that these people who had been trained by the three universes would be influenced by the red coats under the stars to cultivate the path of heartlessness. There were always people watching outside the valley of storms, but they were not spying on him. They knew Lu Yin's strength, so it was impossible for them to spy on him. They just wanted to keep an eye on him, and some even wanted to be his disciple. "Look, so many people are coming out." The others looked over and saw a group of people walk out from the valley of storms. They were all young men and women. Some walked in twos and threes while laughing and talking, while others walked alone. There were at least 10,000 of them. The cultivators around the valley of storms were stunned. Why had so many people suddenly appeared? They hurriedly stopped one of them. "Brother, are you Mr. Lu's disciples?" The man who was stopped had a wooden expression. He looked at the people in front of him, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. He whispered, "Yes." "What are you cultivating in there?" The man pursed his lips. "Well, Mr. Lu doesn't want us to talk about it." The people around him looked at each other, and some asked a few more questions, but they did not get anything out of him. In the end, these people treated him to a meal because the man said he was hungry. The same scene happened many times, and the 10,000 people all left. Lu Yin was looking forward to what these people would bring to the red coats under the stars. Chapter 4291. The Heartless Path. People were heartless, and things were heartless, but being heartless was a choice of people. It was the direction of life, not the essence of life. The ultimate meaning of cultivating the ruthless path was to change the essence of life. It was just like how Lu Yin had asked Patriarch Lu Yuan to plant the instant transmission technique. However, due to the essence of human life, the instant transmission technique had to be seen before it could be used. This was because humans were afraid of the unknown, which determined this characteristic. The direction of the heartless path was to change the essence of life, making people no longer human, or rather, no longer ordinary people. However, it was very difficult to change the essence of life. Not to mention those ordinary cultivators, even if it was an eternal life realm expert, how many people could change it? Even He Shao and those who had done all kinds of evil things could not do it. This was not something that could be done by being heartless. In Lu Yin's opinion, even drinking wine might not be able to do it. Since it could not change the essence of life, most of the things that people were used to did not change, such as family and inheritance. What changed was the way people interacted with each other. The Lien family. The red coat under the stars was a relatively powerful family. Although they had never produced an eternal realm expert, they had never stopped producing 6/10 of a red coat. The historical records of the family began. The Lien family had produced more than 10 6/10 of a red coat. It was not that there were no more. There were no records. Some family forces had produced an eternal realm expert. They were glorious, but they would also fall quickly. Especially the red coat civilization under the stars who cultivated the heartless path. The eternal realm expert might not even care about his family. They were walking in the direction of changing the essence of life. It was difficult to cut off all connections. Some families had never produced an eternal realm expert, but they had experts for generations. Such families could also be passed down for a long time, and the Lien family was one of them. On this day, the Lien family was as usual. Although there were many family members, they rarely gathered together. Until one person arrived, the Lien family had no choice but to gather the family members to welcome him. The person who came was Elder Qiu. Lien Gui greets Elder Qiu. Greetings, Elder Qiu. The Lien family members bowed respectfully. Elder Chiu nodded and looked at Lian Gui. How are Lian Jian's injuries? Lian Gui was the head of the Lian family, and Lian Jian was the 6/10 of a red coat of the Lian family. He was also the first person to challenge the Valley of Storms. He was severely injured by Lu Yin and did not dare to attack again. Lian Gui said respectfully, "The patriarch is still in seclusion. We don't know." As he spoke, he looked curiously at the person behind Elder Chiu. It was a young man. Could he be Elder Chiu's junior? He had never heard of Elder Chiu having a descendant. Chiu Lao had always been alone. Elder Chiu looked at the young man. He's still in seclusion. What do you think? Lian Gui's eyes twitched. You? His thoughts raced. For Elder Chiu to be so respectful to this person, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Although Elder Chiu was not as powerful as Xie Man and Chu Songyun, no one dared to look down on him because of his seniority and his relationship with the substitute sovereign of the Heartless sect, Ba Yu. He could even talk to an eternal life realm expert. Who was this person? He went through all the eternal life realm he knew in his mind. Although he had not seen all of them, they did not seem to be right. Wait, he suddenly thought of someone and looked over in shock. The person who followed Elder Chiu to the Lian family was Lu Yin. This time, he was here for the history of the Lian family. He wanted to understand the Red Coat civilization under the stars. History was the best language. However, the oldest historical records were in the Heartless sect and could only be read by Elder Chiu Wen. He also wanted to investigate Elder Chiu Wen, but Elder Chiu Wen would not let him read it easily. Therefore, he stared at the ancient families in the Red Coat civilization. Although the history of these families was not that long, piecing it together could give him some understanding. In particular, the history of these families would record some unimportant and unexplainable things. These things might give him some clues. Lu Yin looked at Lian Gui. I'm Lu Yin. Sorry to disturb you. Lian Gui was shocked and bowed deeply. Lian Gui greets Mr. Lu. Behind him, the Lian family also bowed. Greetings, Mr. Lu. Lu Yin was not an eternal life realm expert, but in many people's hearts, he was not weaker than an eternal life realm expert. This was especially so for the Lian family. They knew how serious the patriarch's injuries were. This person could injure the patriarch without even showing his face. No matter what status Lu Yin had in the Red Coat world, at least in the Lian family, no one dared to offend him. They did not expect the Heartless sect to protect them after offending Lu Yin. Lu Yin said, Lian Jian's injuries are that serious. He's been in seclusion until now. I was the one who hit him too hard. Lian Gui and the others did not know what to say. They had never thought that they would encounter such a situation. What was the meaning of this? Chiu Lao also found it strange. Not to mention the Red Coat world, even in normal civilizations, such things rarely happened. He coughed. Mr. Lu is here to visit Lian Jian. Why? Are you not going to invite us in? Lian Gui reacted and hurriedly invited Lu Yin and Chiu Lao to take a seat. When everyone was seated, Chiu Lao began to talk. He tried to get closer to Lian Gui. Of course, he was not good at these things. After all, he also practiced the Heartless path. When had he ever done such things? But he had no choice. He was forced by Lu Yin. A few days ago, Lu Yin went to the Heartless sect to find Chiu Lao. The first thing he said was, "Don't think that I don't know that you were the one who instigated Xie Man and the others to find trouble with me. You were also the one who revealed the location of the Valley of Storms." This sentence made Chiu Lao's heart sink to the bottom. He quickly apologized. In the end, he was forced to bring Lu Yin to find a family with a long history. The first family he thought of was the Lian family. He had no choice. Lian Jian was the first to challenge the Valley of Storms and was familiar with him. Naturally, he thought of them first. Lu Yin did not say anything. He sat quietly and waited for Qiu Lao to ask the Lian family to show him the family history. If Qiu Lao could not do it, then he could not blame him. When he thought of this, he glanced at Qiu Lao and Lian Gui. Qiu Lao felt a chill run down his spine. He thought that with Baoyu, as long as he did not challenge Lu Yin, everything would be fine. But looking at his attitude, this person did not care about Baoyu at all. It could even be said that he did not have much respect for sect master Jiu Wen, let alone him. Qiu Lao had no choice but to work hard. The Great Six Red Coat had actually become so humble. Lian Gui was not feeling well either. Qiu Lao was not good at getting close and did not talk about the main topic. He could only follow suit. He really wanted to know what these two were here for. Although he was being perfunctory, he could not let anyone see through it. For someone who practiced the heartless path, it was too difficult. The other members of the Lian family were waiting outside. They all had strange expressions as they listened to one pretend to get close to the other. It was strange no matter how they listened. Finally, they heard, I heard that the Lian family has a long history. Mr. Liu is very interested in the history of the Red Coat civilization. Can you borrow it for a look? Qiu Lao could not take it anymore. This was torture for him. Originally, it was impossible to let an outsider see the family history, but Lian Gui was inexplicably relieved when he heard Qiu Lao's words. Just the family history. He had thought that something important had forced Qiu Lao to say this. He had been dealing with Qiu Lao while thinking of how to reject this unreasonable request. Now, it seemed that this request was too reasonable. Lian Gui hurriedly stood up. So Mr. Liu wants to see the family history. Of course, you can. Qiu Lao sighed. Lu Yin nodded. Thank you. Then I'll have to trouble Patriarch Lian Gui. Let's go take a look. Won't the two of you rest? Lian Gui asked politely. Qiu Lao looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin said, no need. We'll leave after reading. Thank you. Lian Gui sighed again. I should be the one thanking you. He thought about it and quickly brought Lu Yin to see the family history. No one thought that Lu Yin really came to the Lian family just to see the family history. The Lian family thought that he had come to settle the score. After a while, Lu Yin and Qiu Lao left. The Lian family was completely relieved. Lian Gui wiped the sweat off his forehead. He was too tired. They left. A voice came, startling Lian Gui. He looked back and exhaled heavily. Ancestor. It was Lian Jian, the first six-part red to challenge the Kanglan Valley. He was severely injured by Lu Yin's finger. They left? Yes, they left. Just to see the family history. Lian Gui nodded. Lian Jian looked into the distance with a complicated expression. He knew when Lu Yin stepped into the Lian family, but he did not want to come out. It was not that he did not dare to, but that he did not want to be mocked by Qiu Lao. He was tricked by Qiu Lao to be the first six-part red to challenge the Kanglan Valley. It felt like he was paving the way for someone else. After this, his temper was much better. But why did Lu Yin want to see the family history? On the other side, Qiu Lao brought Lu Yin to the next family while Lu Yin recalled the family history he had seen. Most of the family history recorded the past of the Lian family, especially the six-part red they had produced. They were all recorded as legends. There were not many records of the entire civilization, but through the records of the six-part red, one could roughly understand the situation of the red-shirt civilization below the astral plane. This civilization cultivated the heartless Tao and was heartless, but that did not mean that it was all about killing. Killing was limited to Heartless Valley, and there was very little killing in other places. It was much less than Lu Yin had expected. Because of the Heartless Tao, one's desire to compete for benefits had decreased. In the three universes, most of the conflicts between people were because of benefits. But here, the conflicts of benefits were much less because of heartlessness. Also, many people did not have emotional ties, so there were fewer conflicts. There was also face. Heartless people did not need face. This meant that the fighting between people in the three universes had been magnified by the Heartless Valley, which made Lu Yin feel disgusted. In reality, the red-shirt civilization below the astral plane did not represent killing. Some people did not compete with others for their entire lives. They believed that this was heartless, and that it was enough to ignore everyone. There were many people who thought this way. In general, the killing in the red-shirt civilization below the astral plane was similar to that in the three universes. It was just that the methods and locations of the killings were concentrated, which made it seem more exaggerated. This was one of the reasons. Another reason was that the Heartless sect had not always existed. This was the history that Lu Yin was concerned about. The red-shirt civilization below the astral plane had always had the Heartless Tao, but not the Heartless sect. In the Lien family's records, there were several six-part read that addressed Jiao Wen as the sect master, but there were no other sect masters. Could it be that Jiao Wen had founded the Heartless sect? Or was it the hero ancestor? There were not many records about the hero ancestor, and his words were filled with respect. He was very mysterious. End of Chapter 1. They were talking about feelings. We have to talk about feelings. Even if he didn't have feelings for her, he had to create some feelings for her. The survival of these people was like a slap to the Heartless sect's face. Furthermore, it was being whipped repeatedly. The bartender was dumbfounded. How did Lu Yin teach him? Ba Yu came out of seclusion. She had also heard of the legend and felt that something was amiss. However, she did not know what was wrong. She found Jiao and asked him to capture those people for interrogation, as long as they didn't kill them. They had interrogated them, but the results had been completely meaningless. All they knew was that they had been born in the Valley of Storms, and that the person who had taught them was Lu Yin. The Eternal Life realm had exhausted all means to get the same result. This result made the Heartless sect's people completely dumbfounded. Even the red coats under the stars and some other powerful forces were dumbfounded because that group of people was affecting their disciples. Seeing a group of people shouting in the distance about overthrowing the Heartless path and spreading emotions throughout the world, Ba Yu found it jarring. Sect leader, are we really going to leave these people alone? Jiao Wen was speechless. How? Ba Yu gritted her teeth. If this continues, not only will it affect them, many people will be affected by them. I have high hopes for a disciple. She. Jiao Wen shook his head. Of course, he knew that Ba Yu had been paying attention to a cultivator. She thought that the cultivator was suitable to be her disciple. Although she did not cultivate the Heartless path, in the red coat civilization under the stars, the more elite they were, the more they would be affected by the Heartless path. It was the same for the disciple she had high hopes for. She did not mind taking in a Heartless path cultivator as a disciple. However, that disciple had run away with a brat from the Valley of Storms. She was laughing all day long. She did not even care about cultivation, let alone the Heartless path. Instead, she was talking about love. Ba Yu wanted to kill that brat. There's also Elder Qiu. I heard that something is wrong with him recently. Jiao Wen's gaze shifted. Then you can ask him what happened. This Elder Qiu is becoming more and more like someone from the Valley of Storms. Ba Yu immediately went to find Elder Qiu. Elder Qiu was still with Lu Yin. However, Luin was reading a family history while Elder Chiu was standing in the courtyard, bored. When Ba Yu arrived, Elder Chiu was surprised. Acting sect leader. Ba Yu looked at Elder Chiu. What exactly happened? Elder Chiu was helpless. This Mr. Liu insisted on reading the family history. Back then, I revealed the location of the Valley of Storms and instigated Lien Jian to challenge him. He had something on me and I had to take him to the various families. I have to say that the family history of these families is very valuable. Although I did not read it, there were times. That's enough. Why are you so long-winded? Ba Yu was dissatisfied. Elder Chiu did not speak like this before. Elder Chiu smiled bitterly. I'm used to it. He's reading family history here. Yes. What do you think of him? Elder Chiu thought for a moment. Although we have known each other for a long time, we have not spoken much. Ba Yu looked at Elder Chiu in disbelief. Elder Chiu smiled bitterly. This Mr. Liu does not like to talk. He spends most of his time reading family history. Some families have been passed down for a long time, but because of some changes, they found a way to hide. We spent a lot of time looking for those families. Also, Ba Yu interrupted, have you heard about the people from the Valley of Storms? Elder Chiu nodded. I have. Do they look like Luin taught them? Ba Yu asked. Elder Chiu thought for a moment. Yes. 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 Elder Chiu was certain. Although this Mr. Liu does not like to talk much, every time he speaks, he hits the nail on the head. I feel that he can see through everyone. Ba Yu frowned. He is very scheming. You can say that. Elder Chiu agreed, but then he said, but his nature is not bad. Ba Yu snorted. He just hides it well. You should be careful around him. Don't be used by him without knowing. Elder Chiu nodded and looked at Ba Yu. You should be careful too. Chu Songyun went to the emotionless sect to find you. He Xiao went there immediately. He does not plan to let you go. Ba Yu's gaze turned cold. I will not let him go either. Then she left. Elder Chiu sighed. He Xiao was not someone to be trifled with. But this Mr. Liu did not seem to care at all. Soon after, Luin arrived. Ba Yu is very concerned about you. What is your relationship with her? Elder Chiu was not surprised that Luin knew. At his level, unless he deliberately hid it, he could detect it. I saved her life when she was young. Luin glanced at Elder Chiu. Does the emotionless path save people? Elder Chiu said, I just did it in passing. She does not cultivate the emotionless path, so she remembers it until now. Many times, because of our relationship, people look at me differently. Actually, I am one of the 6 red coats. Let's go to the next house. Luin did not want to listen to nonsense. Elder Chiu was speechless. He had been interrupted 3 times. A few years passed quickly. In these few years, the most famous people were the people from the Valley of Storms. Now, everyone knew that the wine quiz promised Luin not to touch the people from the Valley of Storms. The emotionless sect announced that whoever could influence the people from the Valley of Storms and make them cultivate the emotionless path would be allowed to join the emotionless sect directly. They would even be qualified to fight for the wine quiz. This condition caused countless cultivators to rush out to find the people from the Valley of Storms. Now, the people from the Valley of Storms did not dare to be so arrogant. Even if they could guarantee that they would not be affected by the emotionless path, being watched by dozens, or even hundreds of cultivators all day was unbearable. In these few years, some people from the Valley of Storms had also been affected. It could not be helped. Everyone had desires, and the smarter they were, the more they were like this. They analyzed the pros and cons and felt that joining the emotionless sect and cultivating the emotionless path was the only way out. As for the Valley of Storms, with Luin behind them, could they be as powerful as the emotionless sect? If they knew that they came from the three universes, they would naturally not think this way. However, they themselves did not know. Luin watched calmly as someone from the Valley of Storms was persuaded to join the emotionless sect. "Mr. Lu, aren't you going to stop them?" Elder Chiu asked. Luin was indifferent. Everyone has their own ambitions. But if more than half of them are affected, then... Elder Chiu did not say anything. His position should be on the emotionless sect's side, not Lu Yin's. Luin did not care. It was not that easy for the emotionless sect. Those people had been taught for 20 years. It was difficult to change the personality that was carved into their bones. Out of 10,000 people, there would definitely be someone who would be affected. This was expected, but Luin believed that most people would not be affected. This was a battle between the three universes and the redcoats from the underworld. The redcoats' advantage was that this was their civilization. They came with the momentum and could do anything. The advantage of the three universes was that 20 years of training and teaching. This was a clash between civilizations. At this moment, even if he intervened, it would be useless. No, there was a way to change the situation and make those who joined the emotionless path regret. That was the path sword. He could use the path sword to cut off the experience of being tempted and keep the experience of those people before they were tempted. Those who tempted him would think that they had failed and would not be tempted again. Luin had thought of this method before. His target was actually He Shao and the other Eternal Realm cultivators. If one day, the three universes merged with the redcoats from the underworld and became a human civilization, it would naturally be good to have a few more Eternal Realm cultivators. However, He Shao and the others' actions were unacceptable. And they could not change themselves. The only way was to use the path sword to cut off their past experience. This was also what Jiuwen had said. Changing the emotionless path would change them. However, if he wanted to cut off the past of an Eternal Realm cultivator, the karma consumed would be very exaggerated. He had cut off the karma of an immortal master and buried the path sword. The karma consumed was almost that of an Eternal Realm cultivator, and that was only a portion of the karma. He was not an Eternal Realm cultivator now. Cutting off the karma of an Eternal Realm cultivator above his level would naturally consume a lot of karma. Luin could not bear to consume so much karma even for one Eternal Realm cultivator, let alone a few. Karma was one's strength. For these ordinary cultivators, the karma consumption was negligible. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.